All right. Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so we'll get underway. I'd like to call the June 2nd school committee meeting to order, and we will start with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll start with our consent agenda items. We have the minutes from May 19th meeting, as well as oath to bills and payroll.
Move to accept the minutes.
Motion to accept. Second. Seconded by Mr. Austin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. All right, we will move on to our first opportunity for interested citizens. There'll also be a time at the end of the meeting. Can't promise when that might be, though. So if you're interested in speaking, whether you're at home or in the room, now would be the time. Not one? Okay, great. We will now move on to our recognition portion of the meeting. Maddie Schufrin will give us a final update from...
Final update. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So from Shaker Lane would like to thank their amazing PTA for funding 2 events this week. K-2 students enjoyed a rhythmic bucket boot camp yesterday, and all preschool through grade 2 students and staff enjoyed a Kona shaped ice truck treat today. And these 2 events were a highlight of their week. Next week, Shaker Lane looks forward to some great events planned by the PTA and art staff, field day and the art show. They welcome families and community members to visit the art show at Shaker Lane on Friday, June 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. For Russell Street had its field days this week, and they wanted to give a special thanks to Ms. Wood and all of the parent volunteers who came to help. Russell Street is also looking forward to the return of the staff/student basketball game next week, which will be really exciting. And then on to the middle school. The middle school recently hosted a production of The Aliens Are Coming, which was a great success. The 8th grade trip to New Hampshire is ready to go for Monday, June 13th, and it's going to be a blast. The 8th grade promotion ceremony is for Friday, June 17th at 4:30 with an exclusive after party at the school. The middle school needs parent volunteers to help set up, and the school will send an email soon with more information about that. For the high school, tomorrow is graduation for seniors at 5:30 at alumni. Hopefully the rain will hold off for that. But if it doesn't, the rain date is for Saturday at alumni at 10:30. June 6th is the National Honor Society induction at 7 p.m. June 7th to 8th is biology MCAS for 9th grade, and then June 14th to 16th are final exams for grades 9 to 11. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What makes the after party exclusive? Is it?
I think it's just, yeah, it's just you can only, only if you're there. You just, yeah.
I guess I don't know.
I mean, that means that I can't go, but
sounds great.
Privilege for those who can. Thanks, Maddie. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much. Dr. Punchy, is there any other just recognition items you wish to share?
Just one. Congratulations to the class of 2022. We're looking forward to our celebration, hopefully tomorrow night, if not Saturday morning. We'll keep our fingers crossed if the weather holds. Dr. Harrington will be up early in the morning and, trying to figure out what to do so that we're not rained on when we do have our commencement ceremonies. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. The committee echoes that. Congratulations to the class of 2022. We're now going to move on to our presentation portion of the meeting, right? Yeah, okay. We have a number of presentations to try to get through this evening. So I would just ask that the intent of the committee is to try to get through all of the information. Last meeting, we got a little jammed up and we had to shift some things to this meeting. So we'd like to try to keep all presentations 5-10 minutes. Dr. Harrington, Jason Everhart are each going to give a 10-minute piece. So their presentation will be 20 minutes. So keep in mind that committee members might like to ask questions or might have some feedback. So we will get things underway. Dr. Clinch is going to lead by example here with the district slideshow.
So, it's automated. I can't go wrong.
Perfect. All right. So we'll turn it over to Dr. Clenchy.
Yes. Every year we spend some time creating a video of the school year that showcases our students. It's a great way to have the year come to an end. And you can see, even though we started the year off with mitigation strategies, so to speak. When you see this video, it'll be very clear to all of you that pictures speak 1,000 words, and our kids had not only a great year, but they had fun in school as well.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing.
You bet. Yes, we're looking forward to a strong finish to the school year. And, hope you enjoyed the video this evening.
Perfect. Nice to see lots of all those smiling faces. All right. Next up, we have members from the library board. They're going to present a general update about the programming for the public library. Welcome. Yep. You can join us at the podium.
Hi, I'm Sam Alvarez. I'm a director of our library. Thanks for having me here today. I just wanted to talk about how we collaborate with the schools and talk a little bit about our upcoming learning programs. So we have a slideshow for you.
What's going on?
So just so you know, some of the services that we offer, we have access to literally hundreds of thousands of millions of books, audio books, DVDs. We have a library of things where you can take out anything. Nintendo Switch to a sewing machine, Tito shoes, whatever. And we also have to give you access to books and materials from across the state and across the country. If you have some time or anything from Washington or California. We also have toddler story times, grade level book clubs, annual summer reading programs, which I'll talk about a bit later. Educational programs that help promote and maintain literacy skills. We have free online databases where you can go and learn about science or history. We have some that are even specifically geared towards middle school and elementary age kids. We have e-audiobooks, online classes on subjects like photography, and you can go online. We have Rosetta Stone databases and Rocket Language databases, so you can go on and learn different languages and American Sign Language. We also have museum passes, courtesy of the Friends of the Library. You can go to local museums and other areas, parks, and recreational activities for free or for the
So
district.
could you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Just or adjust the mic. Thank you.
Okay. So we also have reference help from trained librarians and staff to answer questions on multiple topics. So currently, the way we collaborate with the schools is we continue to speak with teachers about upcoming school projects. We work with them to determine what sort of books you might need to help the students. We work with you to create some reading lists, and we order the books to put in our catalog. We distribute library promotional materials to the principal emails. Our children's librarian, Diane Haddock, used to be a member at large at the Shaker Lane Advisory Board. And every year we give classroom tours of the library. So on beginning of June 20th, the summer reading theme this year is Read Beyond the Beaten Path. Summer reading programs have been shown to increase literacy, reading habits, motivation, confidence, and enjoyment among kids. The programming provides educational and social opportunities for children and teens during the summer. Some upcoming programs for the kids and teens include a story walk, hands-on nature programs, wildlife encounters program, cartoonist book clubs, STEM programs, Lego clubs, take and make craft projects, story times, game nights, movies, and much more. So all activities and events require pre-registration, and registration begins on June 21st and ends on August 20th. Participants that take part can keep a log of the events they reach and earn raffle tickets for a chance to win grand prizes. Some prizes this year include books, toys, games, and for the YA kids, even a Nintendo Switch program. So thank you very much, and thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about the library.
Okay.
Thank you. Any particular questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. It sounds like we have a lot of individual contacts between individual teachers and individual librarians. Do we have an effective way for the library to work like institutionally with the schools?
Sure. So that's what we're working on right now, is to create a collaboration effort that would.
Thank you.
I know you're doing something right, because on the way to school this morning, the conversation in the backseat of my car was, can we go to the library this weekend? So word's getting out. There's stuff for the kids to do. They're loving it. So
That's great.
good work.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, we're going to hear from members of the CPAC to give their annual presentation. Welcome.
It's actually not the annual presentation, that will be in September, but this is the short overview of CPAC and Littleton and so forth. So thank you for having me. My name is Åsa Karlstad, and I'm one of several parents who restarted looking at CPAC at the beginning of COVID. And the CPAC is a special education parent advisory council. We saw the need for us parents and guardians to of children with disabilities to have an avenue to have our voices heard, while also supporting and joining other parents in town who are on the same journey as we are. All school districts in Massachusetts are required to establish a CPAC, and we have been encouraged by parent participation and interest since we officially started in April last year. A CPAC is parent, guardian-led, and in addition to providing support and resources to parents, Massachusetts state law assigns both an advisory and participatory function. The CPAC has a duty to meet regularly with school officials, to participate in the planning, development, and evaluation of the district's special education programs, and as a result, hopefully be an advisor to the school committee on matters that pertain to the education and safety of students with disabilities. Since March 2021, we've hosted 8 workshops, including presentations on dyslexia, special education, basic rights, executive functioning, and more. And we have held 4 business meetings with the CPAC board and parents, where Brad Boston, who is our school committee liaison, and Director of Human Services, Lynn Snow, have also been present. And we have been, and we continue to be available to parents to answer questions and provide resources around special education. Each school has also 1 or more CPAC liaisons that we hope parents and staff will connect with. There's also a CPAC section at the library. So if you talk to Ms. Haddock, she can show you that section. This spring, we also added monthly parent support groups. And right before this meeting, this school committee meeting, we had our first meeting with Brad Austin and Lynn Snow in order to begin our duty to meet regularly with school officials to participate. And we now have standing meetings on the books for the next school year. So we're very grateful for that. And we appreciate the willingness and encouragement to get that in place. So by receiving and giving parent feedback, having regular meetings with the district and our school committee liaison to bring parent voices to the table, and the CPAC presence at upcoming school committee meetings, where we will look at policy and budget items impacting students with disability. We hope that the work we are attempting to do will benefit not only kids with disabilities, but the whole district, all kids in our districts. So we have elections now on June 16th at 7 p.m. for all positions. And all parents in town with children with special education needs are welcome and encouraged to run and to vote. All kids in school over 14 with special education needs are also welcome to vote and to volunteer, and are welcome to all our meetings, and we really want to hear their voices as well. So the meeting will be held at Rubenhorn Library in the stretch room and online. And information should have been sent out to the principals. That can also be found on the CPAC Facebook page, or you can email the CPAC at cpac@gmail.com. And if you don't have a child with special education needs, but have an interest in special education and would like to be part of what we do, we hope people will volunteer into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Maybe none from you, Brad, since you're there all the time.
I'm the school committee rep. No, I just like to congratulate the leadership and the membership. It's I think been a benefit to our families to have an active and enthusiastic CPAC and leadership team, and we'll continue to bear the fruits moving forward. Really appreciate it.
Yes, we've been very encouraged by parent participation and the lively discussions we've had. It's been very, very good. Yeah.
Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, well, moving right along, our next presentation is the high school, middle school start time presentation, which is going to be performed, I believe, virtually by some parents. Let's see if the slides, we'll just try to cue them into the meeting.
Yeah. Jen, you want to start first and then I'll pull the slides up, or you want to put the slides up first?
Go ahead, pull them up. Well, Kristen can do her intro.
Yeah, I can start. I'm not dependent on the slides, actually. Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes. 1 second, there might be an opportunity to turn the volume down just a touch.
Okay.
You want to give us a test?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Is that better?
That's better. Yes. I think it was on our so.
Great. I'm Kristen Lafferty, for those of you that don't know me. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us some of your very precious time during this meeting, because I know that it is very precious, especially with all the presentations tonight. So let me just do some quick introductions. I'm Kristen Lafferty. I'm going to be joined by Jen Wilson and Karen Morrison, and we are really just showing up here tonight as a group of concerned parents who formed kind of an organic mission with the hopes of bringing the school start times kind of back to the forefront of the discussions. Again, we were so excited to see that it kind of came up at the last meeting, and even more excited that you guys formed a working subgroup kind of around that initiative. So if possible, we would love to respectfully kind of add some of our research and voices to the discussion tonight, kind of from a public health and wellness perspective. Collectively, just so you know who's talking to you, collectively, the three of us have 8 different children in the Littleton public school system, spanning from kindergarten all the way up to 11th grade. Our varied backgrounds in nursing and law and clinical social work are what have informed our research and our ultimate desire to kind of see some changes in the school schedule. So I think our hope, before I hand it off to Jen, is that this presentation would be a catalyst for deeper discussion around start times, and that what is best for our students' health and well-being would be the ledger that guides us. So I'll just hand the baton to Jen, and she's going to do part 1, and Karen is going to do part 2 for us.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. So as Kristen was saying, we're going to present some ideas about how to maximize the well-being of our students through using later school times. So we can move on. Okay. So what problems are directly related to the lack of sleep in students? This list is not, there are many more problems that are related to lack of sleep, but some of the main ones are suffering from symptoms of depression and suicidal ideation, engaging in unhealthy, risky behaviors like drinking, smoking, tobacco, and illicit drugs, performing poorly in school, lack of engagement in daily physical activity. There's an increased likelihood for participating in risk-taking behaviors like bullying and fighting. There's a higher risk of athletic injury and an increased risk of motor vehicle accidents. And so why should we start later? Thank you. The AAP and AMA recommend 8:30 a.m. start times or later. This means our children are healthier, which aligns with the SEL initiative we have in Littleton. We feel that our children are really suffering right now from the effects of COVID, the recent school shootings, along with a lot of other challenges. Nationally, teenagers are on a downward trajectory with their mental health. And so the three of us are saying that this is one thing we can do right now to make some change for the better for our students. And this is related to sleeping because sleep patterns for middle and high school age children are unique. They don't just go to bed later because, they're teenagers. It's actually part of their natural cycle. And why I'll start later, because physical and mental health of our students is predicated upon getting enough sleep. So, okay, I'm looking at your slides. Thank you for moving on. These are some of the organizations that support later start times. There are numerous organizations, but some of the most well-known ones are listed here, including the MIAA, Massachusetts Medical Society, and the Middlesex League of Superintendents. So, I'll do this one. So how do Littleton start times compare locally or nationally? We took a look at 27 local communities, either geographically close or opponents of our sports. Littleton is among the earliest start times for high school and middle school. Of the 27 we looked at, there are only 2 high schools that begin earlier than Littleton, and only 1 middle school begins earlier than Littleton. Half of the middle schools reviewed start at 8 a.m. or later, and half of the high schools start at 7:40 or later. Nationally, Massachusetts has the earliest average start times in the US, and only about 10% of public schools start as early as our state. We are clearly outliers. The start times in Littleton are the earliest in this region. That's the earliest in the country. So we really have a lot we can do to make start times more in line with the country. We're usually not, we're usually leaders, right, in this town. And then the next slide here just shows a breakdown of start times. And you can see we've circled here around where we are, where we stand in this chart generally. And with that, I will pass it on to Karen. Are you there?
Okay, I'm here. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so I think to keep going with this idea, it's what can we expect if we were to change start times? And a lot of this is things you've heard before, and some of them might be surprising. So I think a lot of us have heard that academic performance improves, test scores improve, but we also see a decrease in bullying and fighting in school. We've seen an improved focus and self-regulation, which we know is so key to kids' behavior and performance both. Improved mental health. And then this was surprising to me, fewer car accidents. When kids are less sleepy, when they're starting a little later in the day, they have fewer car accidents. We also seen less substance abuse. And another surprising one for me, at least, was fewer sports injuries. Getting enough sleep is associated with a nearly 70% cut in sports injuries. So for a town like ours and a school system like ours, where I think we're at like 2/3 of our kids play some sort of sport, that's a really significant impact, especially for our community. Moving on. I think there's a few issues that come up pretty regularly in discussions about later start times. And what's interesting is that now that we have a little time by seeing how much the rest of the country has done, we can benefit from their experiences and see, for example, that later start times did not result in less participation in sports or in fewer games won. It did not lead to later bedtimes, which is, I think, an argument or a discussion point that you hear a lot. Well, if they can sleep in later, they're just going to stay up later. But the experiences of other schools and the studies that have been conducted about those later start times just don't bear that out. Participation in after-school activities didn't decline. And students did not have difficulty arriving on time to after-school employment. And I think those are all really important things to keep in mind. Like I said, now that we have the benefit of seeing how many other schools have done this, we can take away those lessons learned. Mm-hmm. So if we're looking at, for example, there was a study that followed Minnesota, and they moved their start time to 8:20. The result was improved attendance, improved enrollment, less sleeping in class, which is a big bonus, less student reported depression, which I think is key, especially for right now when we are hearing so much about how our kids are really struggling mentally and emotionally. Fewer student visits to the school counselors for behavioral and peer issues, which means that those school counselors have more time for the kids who need it the most. And at home, parents reported that their children displayed a more even temperament, which is, I'll say as a parent, a fantastic side of benefit. So what are we hoping will happen is that, with research indicating that 8:30 is the optimal start time, we would really like to encourage the school committee to pass a resolution tonight that Littleton Public Schools will work for a goal of an 8:30 high school start time for the 2023-2024 school year. We understand that there are issues and lots of logistics that have to be worked out, but we think that 2023-2024 school year is doable. Especially now that we've got the working group started, we are hoping that they're going to meet regularly, of course, and that they can present a plan by the end of this calendar year to present how we can make that 8:30 start time in 2023-2024 work. At the same time, we think that the current situation with our kids dealing with, some mental and emotional issues that are lagging, even still after this return to school from the last couple of years of upheaval. We think it's really important to act now in some way, shape, or form. And while 8:30 is the best time to start, there's no reason that our schools can't make a change for this coming school year by pushing start times back by half an hour across the board. We would see real benefits. Our kids would realize real gains, and we think it's achievable. The three of us have talked a lot about how the administration and the teachers and the parents and the students came together in these last couple of years to make tough decisions and make hard things happen for the benefit of our kids. And we think that that time is with us in terms of start times, that now is a time to go ahead and make some changes for the better. Mm-hmm. And that's where we'll stop. Maybe see if there's any questions.
I want to thank all three of you very much for the presentation. On the heels of this, we have a couple of slides that Jen and Dina are going to go over, but in particular for these three. I know you guys are going to talk, so I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead, Brad.
Sure. No, I really appreciate all the work y'all put into this. Last year, I prepared or a lot of us did work together to prepare when we thought we wouldn't be talking about COVID as much. Prepared a reading list. I went through all the databases, read some of the same. I think the Minnesota report that you cited is one that's caught my eye as well.
Yeah,
I'm inclined, based on my not superficial reading 10 or 12 academic articles about this, to think that you're heading the right direction. You point to the setting a goal and how to work for it. I think that's actually the right thing. I think we're going to have a process and hear about a process how to do that. But you also point to the experiences that we had over the last year or 2 years about making tough decisions as a community or big decisions as a community. And one of the things that was clear is that those worked best when they were longer conversations and not based only on the response or the report of three citizens suggesting you should act this and acting immediately on it. I don't know, even if I'm inclined to agree that this is probably desirable, I'd want to do the work myself and to have more community involvement, I think, before I'd be willing to hear about logistics, hear about busing, all the other things. I think this is a big decision for our community. I think if we were to make that decision, I'd want to have more community engagement than just us thinking about it for the next 5 minutes and moving on. Just my thoughts.
Yeah. Agreed. I think I echo what you said. I believe that the time is right to approach the subject. There's we've been joking, we're running out of controversial stuff to talk about. So I think that the approach is right, where there's a community involvement, and I think the more members in the community we hear, the larger community support that this has, the easier it'll be for us to possibly make a decision. Of course, we've got to worry about the budget and other things, but I appreciate hearing from you folks. I think that this committee is certainly open to the idea of making a decision on this topic and not simply just saying, hey, we'll deal with this next year or the year after that, because it eventually never gets done. So why don't we shift gears?
Can I just say one thing? one of the constituencies I want to hear from is students, and we happen to have a student who's still here. Maddie, can I put you on the spot and just,
Sure.
what are your just general thoughts about this?
I mean, I love to sleep, so any extra time that I can get. I mean, I know that I mean, this year I had a class, my first mod, so I would sometimes be taking tests at 7:30 in the morning, which I feel like is a lot to ask for a student to do that and to be in that mental space that early in the morning. So any sort of time that I can get to better collect myself and better ready myself for the school day, I think would be really ideal. That's just my opinion.
It's real helpful. Thank you.
Brad, can I just follow up with one quick question? Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, I just wondered, I appreciate your comment, and I guess, and maybe Jen and Bina will speak to this, but if you are looking for more collaboration and more information, I'm wondering that even within that, is there a way that we can formalize or structure like a timeline a little bit more succinctly and say, okay, these are kind of going to be our benchmarks. You know, at this point, we will have connected with busing or finance, and is there a way that we can, and maybe that's something that would happen within the working group, but I would love to see it. I'd love to see maybe a timeline or something formalized a little bit more, and regarding deadlines of when we would come up with, okay, we'll have gathered our information by X.
Yeah, so I'll be quiet and let's see our next slides. So I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. What Bina and I will present, we'll touch on all these things. So that's great. Thank you three so much for teeing that up so eloquently. I think we all share a lot of the same sentiments. So the next slide, you can go to the next one after that, Dorothy, actually. Bina and I are heading up the subcommittee for looking into changing school start times with the intent to optimize our students and staff's mental, social, and emotional health. And so actually, Dorothy, would you go to the next one and then go back to this one? I want to touch first on the working group itself, because, just piggybacking off of what Brad said. So Bina and I met a week or two ago and hashed through a lot of this. And we put together a plan for a working group and then a loose project plan, which will evolve, right? But we wanted to put together something which will then evolve and get more specific over time. The working group is maybe about 75, 80% complete. We're still waiting on hopefully a couple of student representatives, but we've got myself and Bina heading it up from the school committee perspective. Steve Mark, he's our business manager. He manages the budget and the buses, which are two huge components of this whole project. Mike Lynn is our athletic director. He's going to sit on the working group, and athletics are a huge component as well of the logistics. Two teachers / staff members are TBD, but I know we have some volunteers, so those will be fleshed out soon. Thank you to John Harrington of the high school and Matt Levangi of the middle school who volunteered. I know Michelle Kane expressed interest, so we might bring her in on demand if and when Shaker Lane is impacted by this. And then Karen has graciously agreed to sit on the working group as well. We'll look for another parent. And we're also asking Dr. Clenchy, who's agreed to sit as a sort of advisory role on this committee. So I hope that this is an inclusive enough list. I think we don't want this group to get so huge that it's unwieldy, but this feels like the right number and variety of people who have enough stake in all of this that can really be helpful members of the working group. And of course, we will call in others as needed. We're going to meet with the bus company and we're going to talk to all other interested parties as needed, but this will be the core working group. And if you could go back now, Dorothy, please. So this is the rough plan and it will evolve, as I said, over time. Right now we're in June, right? So we've already done this first step, formed the school start times working group. And we plan to hold a kickoff meeting. So we'll be scheduling that sometime in the next 2 weeks. The goal is to do that before the school year ends. At that kickoff meeting, we'll actually get more detailed about this project plan. We'll really put stakes in the ground and milestones and deliverables, meeting times, who we need to meet with, by when do we want to deliver each of these things. In July, we want to identify potential scenarios. So there are a couple of ways we could do this, or we could decide not to do it at all. But there are a couple of different ways we could actually get some school start times a little bit later. And we want to identify those scenarios. We want to determine the key blockers and issues, and then we want to validate the feasibility of these options. So one might sound perfect, but it's just, there's blockers that are just too impossible to overcome and we can't do it. So we'll identify the feasibility and then land on 2 to 3 really viable options to propose to the community. I think other school districts that have done this successfully have done it this way. It's not just open-ended. How do we do this? Well, they come up with 2 to 3 scenarios, they propose them, they get them out into the community, they sort of build an understanding and consensus of the optimal way to do this, and then they make it happen. So with that in mind, in August, we plan to send a survey out with options to the Littleton families and school staff, everybody who's invested in this, to get their feedback and input. And we'll give people time to do that. It's August. We're not going to give people 5 minutes to get this done. We'll give them a couple weeks. And by the start of the school year, or maybe early September, we'll plan to collect the data, crunch the numbers, and present our survey findings in one of our meetings in September. And then I really would like to hold an open forum for community input on the topic. The idea being that we could dedicate the 30 minutes or however long to this topic, not just burying it in a school committee meeting, you know, where a couple of people can speak, but really let people air out their questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, etc. So we really make this as inclusive a process as possible, because the more we do that, the more likely we are to succeed. And then finally, we'll put it to a vote. I mean, I think we're the team that needs to vote on this ultimately and make the decision about whether to do it at all, and if so, how. So this is the rough timeline, and that's the plan. Open to questions.
Great work. I mean, we just got our committee assignments last meeting, and everybody's kind of taking running with them. So super impressed. Love the idea of the timeline, just so that we can hold ourselves accountable, because I do feel like this is a topic that the community has been interested in for a number of years. Dr. Schcmte can probably validate that. I mean, we've only been on school committee for whatever, two plus years now. So all I'll say is that I think that this is a committee that's willing to do the work, try to bring it so that we make a decision. We don't really know which way the decision is going to go, but we certainly want to understand. I think it's pretty clear that we realize all the benefits. We've just got to make sure that we understand what the obstacles are and how we're going to overcome them. And I think we can learn a lot from some of the other districts in our area, because we're not the first ones to do this. As the parent group said, we're the outliers at this point in time. Mm-hmm. So
I would just say, first of all, thanks for the work y'all have done on this. It's great to see it. I know when Jen was on the school committee, and some of the notes that Kelly shared with us were notes that Jen helped prepare several years ago. And so we're still learning from them. I just want to make sure that we're asking the question and not just looking for evidence to support the thesis we already have. So let's look, and make sure that there's room for dissenting voices or for legitimate questions as it happens. And then assuming the party process, as Justin said, hearing from people who've already done this, people who about their process that may be helpful for us to learn, but also about their outcomes 2 years, 3 years, 5 years out. That'll be really helpful. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Hey, Stacy.
Hi. I'm going to echo what everyone else has said. I think this is great. This is a great start to a conversation. And I think what my question for us to maybe look into what metrics we're going to use to see if this is kind of succeeding, if this is going to be beneficial for our community. A lot for the reason that because we're going to need a lot of the towns and the school sports towns that we're working with to come along with us. So if we can have some metrics that show that we've had XYZ benefits, they can kind of come along with us and we can kind of be a leader in that. Because I'm not sure of what schools in our leagues are actually doing earlier school times. I'm not sure if you guys can speak to that just yet, kind of just our local bubble. But I'm not aware of any right now that have started that. So if we want to start that trend locally, it would be good to have some really solid data so that we can kind of bring them along the way.
I had a conversation prior to our presentation with Mike Lynn, and I think at this point there are 2 other schools in our league who are earlier, and I believe one, don't quote me on this, but I believe one is Harvard, Bromfield School, district, and I can't remember what the other one was. It may be Leominster, I'm not sure, but so there are we would not be the first to do it in our league. Where you see more is actually outside of our league, where you see more of the schools that have, you know, I think within our league, we would probably be the third or the fourth. But he said, we have to work, you know, when I had a conversation with him, he said, they've made this move. They feel like it's important and we have to adjust to it. You know, it is logistically a challenge. You know, when you talk with him, he will be honest with you about that. But he said, we have made it work. So we're not the first.
Yeah. No, I know we're not the first. I just I hope that we can be a part of do it so that maybe it isn't as much a logistical problem, just more of us can get involved. But if we can figure out some really good metrics to kind of show the other districts around us, like, hey guys, this is really working. This is really benefiting our community and the students and athletics and all of the benefits that you said it gave. I think that would be really valuable to just kind of keep track of.
Yep. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else? We look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And we're doing really well here.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have an update on the Care Solace program. So I believe Lynn's going to present some information. It was a request, I believe, of the committee from a couple meetings ago. Just give us an update. Thank you.
It was actually great that we were able to push off the agenda item because we now have another couple pieces of data.
More of an update.
So as you know, Littleton Public Schools has been working with Care Solace for a little over almost 2 months now to provide care coordination services to promote community access to mental health care and to support student well-being and learning. So Care Solace is designed to work alongside the school's multi-tiered systems of support and to help schools triage and support student mental health needs and provide a confidential wraparound resource for staff members and families. So they provide live multilingual 24/7, 365 assistance in finding quality local mental health and substance use programs and counseling services. Care Solace also provides data on community mental health needs and access to care and case tracking for referring school staff members. The care navigation system taps into a vast database of mental health care resources to provide a match with therapists and programs based on insurance, location, mental health concerns, and other parameters, regardless of income level. So as this slide indicates, there's a 4-step process to where step 1, there's quick matching to suited providers. The next step is that Care Solace makes calls to confirm fit and identify wait times. The next step is that they facilitate appointments and transition to care. That's when the person begins to get help. And then the last step is that there is follow-up to ensure satisfaction. Some of the things that we did, that we have found is that when we're able to widen the search criteria, it will help decrease wait times. Given that Care Solace has a robust national database, this is a great opportunity to access telehealth when appropriate. For example, 5 to 10 miles and in-person only will yield more limited results than if you expand that search to traveling 10 to 12 miles for in-person, or also being able to accept telehealth. And we also have found too that even if another strategy is to maybe, if you have a desire for in-person, but really want to be able to get in front of a therapist to start the process, to start with telehealth in a geographically feasible area and potentially transition to in-person. Next slide. So Care Solace provides us information with key performance indicators. And so this is the slide that I had up on May 19th. I left it in because I added a slide with our updated data. And just as a little refresher, the inquiries received performance indicator, that's all inbound calls, emails, and video chats coming from community members. Communications saved, those are all outbound calls, emails, and texts by the team as they coordinate care. New cases and warm handoffs, those are all referrals from school staff and community members who contacted Care Solace directly for help making an appointment. Total appointments indicator, the care coordinator spoke to the community member and confirmed they had a booked appointment. The national average for someone where someone receives resources and searches on their own is 18%. So given the frustrating and time-consuming nature of securing a provider, many individuals will begin and abandon the search, hit a roadblock or leave many messages, play phone tag, only to get a call back when they are unable to take the call back. CareSolace will take all of this off of the staff and families' plates. Anonymous searches are the number of completed searches by community members through the proprietary link. They're not just website clicks, it's in a completed intake survey. So given where we are in our utilization, as of, just to go even back to where we first started, as of 4/14, when we first started using the platform, we had 63 communications saved. As compared to at 5/19, there were 1,121 communications saved. As compared to today, we have 1,925 communications saved. As of 4/14, we had 2 warm handoffs. When I pulled the data on 5/19, we had 17 warm handoffs. And as of yesterday, we had 24 warm handoffs. And so on 4/14, we had 3 family-initiated cases. On 5/19, we had 10 family-initiated cases. And now we have 16 family-initiated cases. Next slide. So as you can see on this slide, that includes the data for June, but really that's only one day. But when you look at the total, it takes us from May 19th to June 1st. So it's pretty, a lot of work is being done, which is impressive to see.
Can I ask a question? So do I understand this correctly? So the 1925 are the number of communications from CareSolace 18 to community members.
Yes.
Hey, we're looking for an appointment. We're checking about insurance and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So that's a lot. And that's but am I also reading this correctly? There have been 8 people have found care providers through this?
8 appointments into care.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to I have a slide towards the end that will talk about timelines because we wanted to get information about that. So right now, when we are looking for therapists, it's not uncommon to see wait times of 3 months, 6 months for it to call many providers, and they're not taking referrals, or they're taking referrals, but they're not taking the family's insurance. So the nice thing about CareSolace is that they do all of that vetting and all of that legwork. So even though there's only eight appointments into care out of, I think we might have 24. We have 20, so we have 24 kind of active referrals in our database. So that means 8 out of the 24, so a third already have appointment booked, which is great, given that we've only been using the platform for 2 months.
Thank you.
And so, for the CareSolace platform, they also provide us the different categories of where referrals are coming from, what the referring question is. And so the referral needs are what we would expect to see. They're consistent with data in other districts in the Commonwealth and nationally. We are not surprised that anxiety has the highest prevalence. Anxiety and depression, trauma, those are consistent with data that would be occurring elsewhere. And so they also provide us data with regard to gender, age groups, and ethnicities. This is our data in Littleton. Females, males, and non-binary individuals are represented. All age groups are represented. The ethnicities are not exactly representative of our district. When I did kind of a cross-reference with our district, but they're also not significantly disproportionate. So we're in good shape there as well. And you can go to the next slide. So they also provide us some feedback and input which they refer to as our Net Promoter Score. So a Net Promoter Score is a widely used market research metric. CareSolace sends a survey to respondents asking them to rate the likelihood that they would recommend CareSolace to a friend or colleague. And users are sent a survey after they complete their first warm handoff, then again after their first case has been closed, and then again they're sent quarterly. Our score is only based on 3 surveys being completed. So we will be encouraging the staff that are doing the warm handoff to complete those surveys so we can get some authentic feedback, and then we'll continue to monitor that. One of the questions that I brought to Care Solace is I said I really wanted to know the data Littleton in relation to Massachusetts as far as the average time and also nationally the average time to receive services. So the average time to match, given the data that we have through Care Solace to share, is 4.9 days. In Massachusetts, it's 8.2, and then nationally it's 4. So given that we really want to be looking at Massachusetts because there are many districts that have been using the platform much longer than us, I think that we can expect to see closer to that 8.2 as we continue to move on. So if we see some things slow down in our data, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not continuing to work for us. From referral to appointed, our data is six days. Massachusetts is 16.6, and the national average is 11. And then the time until the first appointment takes place. In Littleton, our data is 20.3 days. Massachusetts, it's 41.4, and nationally, it's 20. One takeaway that I had though too when I saw this is that it's concerning to me that Massachusetts has such high wait times that there's an issue in Massachusetts with our ability to access mental health resources in a timely fashion. That's just a small aside. And so then there are some limitations. As I said, we're working within a fractured mental health care system that's lacking resources and providers. There's still an expectation that families need to engage and be responsive to the Care Companions outreach, but having Care Solace in place to partner with the district and families to take on a majority of the legwork enables our counseling staff to spend more time in front of students and supporting parents to encourage connecting and responding to outreach from Care Solace. Questions?
Yeah.
I think this is such a tremendous resource. It sounds like, I'm sorry, I had to step out for a second. But it sounds like this is something that started this year.
We just started it in April, actually, just in the middle of April. So that's a good question, because one of the things that, if we're really looking at it from a data perspective, we had, I think, as far as appointments into care, when I was going to do the presentation on the 19th, there were only 4 appointments into care. We're at 8 now. So within 2 weeks, we've kind of doubled that number. So I think I'd like to continue to see the trajectory, but if we can see that 4, we saw that 4 turn into 8, if we can get that to 12 to 15 out of those 24 cases, that's a good trend.
Can you talk a little bit about how this is being shared as a resource to students and families and staff?
Oh yes, yeah. So it was shared out by the principals in their weekly newsletter. Care Solace also provides us marketing materials to push out to families. We sent out an initial letter at the district level, but then also a lot of the way it's happening is through our counseling staff. So through the SST process, or if there are students who are receiving counseling at school, or if there's just students who are struggling, or a parent who contacts the school counselor because they're struggling, the counselors are really sharing out the resources about Care Solace and offering that warm handoff. It's happening during IEP meetings. It's happening at meetings, or even if there's a student that's struggling with behavior, we really want to get them into some counseling and be able to address it. So there's a lot of communication about the resource.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is the intent to continue with this indefinitely? What metrics are we using? I mean, I think we all agree this is a fantastic resource. It's incredible. What metrics are we using to decide if it continues indefinitely, and what would be the downside of keeping it going?
So I don't necessarily see a downside yet. I mean, there's a cost associated to it. We're committing to do it for the next school year so we can really evaluate the data. And then I think getting the feedback from parents and also the clinical team. Because one of the benefits too is that the added responsibility, a lot of our counselors are doing some of this legwork for families because they understand the burden that it places. So we have counselors that are seeing kids all day long, and in between seeing students, they're making a phone call, they're calling, they're trying to help parents get in contact with mental health resources. So just the relief that it provides the counseling staff to be able to have them focused solely on delivering services and being in front of students is a huge benefit. So as long as we see the data continue to trend in this way, and as long as we continue to see appointments going into care, and it means that students are getting the resources that they need.
Thank you.
Just two things. One, anecdotally, I'm aware of a family that started this process a week or so ago, and I think a story you shared earlier on is 10 o'clock at night. I really have to. It's time to do something. Within 20 minutes, this family was having a video chat with someone talking about the needs. Would you like to video chat? I would. Could talk to the person, and this family is getting text messages and emails daily, every other day. Hey, we're reaching out to 8 people. This is what we do. Can we talk? I have a question about your insurance. Can we talk about it real quickly? It's just the burden of not having to make the calls and feeling like, golly, I'm letting someone down because I don't have the 2 hours to spend on that. I think it's a real benefit.
And that's a good point, because Care Solace isn't going to give up. Where, as you can see, 82% of families do, because it's so time consuming.
I guess my follow-up question to that is that since the word's getting out, people are using it, placements are happening, we hope improvements occurring. Can we, and to extend your question of, are there ways that we can continue to kind of push this out to families in July and August? Or don't forget about this, you still have the options to this. I hope we can do that to remind people. Yep. And summer is a chance to really work on some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to mention too, that at the recent Parent Connections, I tabled and had some families approach me, which was helpful too. We certainly will be continuing that throughout our summer program, but we can send out communication, I think, midsummer, reminding people of the resource, and then also prior to back to school.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
That's great. Thanks.
Great. Thanks very much, Len. Stacey, you all set?
Yeah, nope. Brad asked the question. I just wanted to see if there was over the summer, so I think that's great.
Terrific. All right, we are going to move on to our school improvement plan highlights. It looks like Dr. Harrington drew the straw to go first.
Thank you very much.
Well, all right, welcome.
With you tonight to present just some brief updates. A lot of the things that I highlight, I want to be respectful of the time, all the presentations. A lot of things I would highlight have already been presented to you throughout the year. This is our last school committee meeting of the year, so we've heard a lot of things. So I'll be moving at a pretty good pace here. Just to start off with sort of general recognitions and accomplishments. One of them, next slide please, would be the Boston Magazine. We always weigh this carefully. It's certainly nice to be touted as one of the outstanding high schools in Massachusetts and Greater Boston specifically. The other recognition I would give is to the community, the staff, for planning and adapting throughout for a very safe and successful school year. So I just want to acknowledge the hard work of the staff that went into that, including this committee. Thank you for your support. With curriculum, there have already been detailed curriculum presentations previously provided in recent months by curriculum coordinators, so I don't think I need to go to any length, but I gave some highlights there for the committee as well as for the community watching perhaps from home. We offer dual enrollment courses. That's something that continues to grow in popularity, and we've integrated this into our own, not just having students go to, say, Middlesex Community College during the day or the evening to take courses. We have integrated this into courses we teach at Littleton High School. Students are taking high school courses and getting college credit for it if they opt for it. And I think that will continue to grow. Financial literacy units has been a priority for us. We continue to integrate units into economics and statistics courses. We expect even greater emphasis on that next year. We got sidelined by a few things this year, and so we intend to do our credit for life there. I'll mention that a little bit later, but on another slide, but we intend to do that next school year. We've updated our curriculum. This is an area of growth for us, and we'll continue to hear updates over the preceding years about updates to our computer science curriculum and technology offerings. But that's something that a new teacher, Dr. Dennis Michaud, has been working very hard on, and I want to acknowledge his efforts tonight. We provided, this is an area of focus throughout the district, cyber safety, digital citizenship training. We provided this for grades 9 and 10 in January. We'll continue to make that part of how we do things each year at grade 9. specifically. But, we'll also we'll acknowledge it in the other grades, but it's going to be part of what a ninth grade student at Littleton High School experiences. Next slide, please. In terms of instruction, again, detailed instruction reports were previously provided by curriculum coordinators. One thing I guess I would highlight, give you a chance to just take a look at the slide rather than read it to you, is that there have been abundant professional development opportunities. Really appreciate the committee support, public support, parent support related to professional development days. And specifically, universal design for learning was provided throughout the school year. And I know you've already received a presentation about that. Next slide, please. Assessment. Again, it's not like a broken record, but detailed presentations were previously provided by curriculum coordinators. And I know they were very thorough and they did a great job. Many teachers, this is worth highlighting, have now started offering performance-based assessments, projects, presentations, research papers, replacing typical mid-year and final exams. I know Brad has brought this up and acknowledged it, kind of excited about the fact that we're doing more of this. We are, though, going, as we try to resume some routines and resetting of expectations, making sure we're doing right by the students, preparing them for what college would like. We didn't do mid-years, but we have reinstituted a final exam schedule for those who want to do it. There's specific departments that tend to lend itself to final exams like mathematics. And other teachers, though, they could offer a final exam by doing presentations and projects, just as I noted. But that's the highlight for assessment at high school. Next slide, please. We've already received a detailed presentation, I believe. Typically, we've done this in the past in October, but it might have been December this past year, about the AP program and the success we experienced, and the credit to the students, their fine efforts, as well as to our staff preparing them throughout the pandemic to do well on these tests. A lot of scholars, 32 AP scholars, lots of distinction. That's based on the results from last May 2021. Our students have just completed their May 2022 exams, and we'll provide you an update in the fall about that. Slide, please. Professional development. I guess I'll bring your attention to the first bullet there. We continue to provide professional development opportunities related to universal design for learning. These are areas of focus in our strategic plan and our school improvement plans: cultural proficiency, instructional technology, social emotional learning, and mental health and wellness. The bottom bullet there is just get a chance to take a look at that. We participated in the new LPS Designed Pd Offerings. This is part of the professional development committee led by Mrs. Steele. This was a huge hit. It's called WIN. The acronym is What I Need Now, giving teachers flexibility to choose what they would like to do in the area of focus. Again, talk about a win-win. This was for everybody. It was a great experience. So we hope that continues next year, succeeding years. Next slide, please. Community and communication, the first bullet there I'll bring your attention to. We've already presented about this, I think, a couple of times. We have completed the survey has gone out to students related to this to solicit feedback related to how they've experienced the new Bell schedule with fewer classes, longer time class sessions, new class rotations, additional learning time hours, integrated a new daily flex block. Now, that's huge. I think there's a lot of schools that might want to go back as we continue to get better and better at how we manage flex. They might want to come and learn from us and see how we're doing this, because this is a huge benefit for us. Very popular with students.
This is the first year with this new schedule, right?
Yeah, this is our new Bell schedule.
Yeah.
We had a unique Bell schedule. We actually kind of started to dip our toe in the water with the longer blocks during the first year back through the pandemic after that spring. In September, we overnight instituted a Bell schedule that we've been talking about for years, trying to get through committee and different things, how schools and faculties operate sometimes. So there's a lot of robust debate about how to do things, and they change in a school. And this we instituted it, we came up with something that summer as part of our committee. I think you were involved in that committee, actually, in terms of the overarching committee of managing the return to school. And then we integrated a different type of Bell schedule that we learned from, and then we tweaked it some more, presented to faculty. And this is our new Bell schedule that will be enacted. Maybe some with feedback from students, adjustments for next fall. We'd be happy to present to you an update on the survey results next fall too, and see how that's going. The next bullet I'd bring your attention to is just something we always like to highlight. This is across the country, and we're seeing even increased emphasis from state officials about this. There's recent publication, our article with Boston Globe about this. Increased internship and work study opportunities in the head. Lots and lots of state support for this, including, I want to highlight a new partnership that we just sort of embarked on with Mass Hire to build, to more efficiently build community internship connections. Students can get paid too as well for these things. So our internships prior to this, we weren't getting paid necessarily. And I also want to acknowledge the students who have gone and volunteered, done internships with Shaker Lane and Russell Street School. That's been a huge hit. We even had a student a few years ago do one here at the police department, one do it at the fire department. So that local connection also helps too. We'd like to get to see more students do internships in the trades. That's an area of need, and we think that will help a lot of our kids who don't necessarily want to go on to college, but want to go right to a trade. Continued strong partnership with the CPAC was mentioned tonight. They made a presentation, LPD, LFD, LEF, LABA, FABLE, Music Boosters, and PTA. Next slide, please. Right. They've already received just an update from the Snow Above Care Solace partnership, so we'll go into detail. Next year, looking forward to the launch of our new personalized academic comprehensive education program. This is a full-day special education program that addresses the needs of students with developmental, neurological, and cognitive impairments, grades 9 through 12. I would expect, you can anticipate they will provide an update in the fall or winter about how this program is going. That launches in September. We're just hiring a special education teacher for it. We're also going to be hiring an aide for this program. It will be intense, and it's a small, substantially separate, small number of students, few students in the program, but a high level of service provided. We also look forward to launching a new LHS Bridge program in September. We're actually undergoing consultation now with some educational professionals who've already established this for other schools, so getting their support to learn how to do this in the smoothest way possible. This is a long time coming for lots of schools. The fact that Littleton High School, a small high school, is doing this is pretty impressive, I have to say, as a principal, because we're putting our time and attention where it's needed. This will be a short-term, intensive academic emotional support for students returning to school after extended absences, perhaps related to hospitalizations of different kinds, could be medical issues, could be psychiatric issues, any number of concerns where students just are not able to attend school and need more intensive support.
And I'm sorry, so this is just to help with the transition, and so they're not just go back immediately to the 6 classes.
Yeah, ideally, it might range from, it might be 2 weeks, it might be 6 weeks, depending on the idea is to integrate the student back into the the regular school setting as much as possible. It might be even half days, or when did you want to say something?
I just want to say it's not specific to students transitioning back from a hospitalization. If there's a student who's in crisis or struggling, they can be referred to the Bridge program for a period of time. And they don't necessarily have to have had a hospitalization in order to be referred to Bridge.
In fact, that's the reason why it's even more valuable, because there are a lot of students who benefit from that. Yeah, it's not just reactive, it will also be positive. The next big update I have for you is that we had the New England Association of Schools and Colleges reached out to us and wanted to postpone our accreditation. We took them up on it. We said yes. They reached out to some schools. We took it as a compliment that they feel we're okay. So Kelly and I had to sign off on a piece of paper that we agreed to it, and we said sure. So that has pushed out our preparations, which I think you might know a little bit, Brad. I see a little head nod of recognition. That is a very involved, intensive process to prepare for. So the fact that we could postpone that next year, trying to come out of the COVID protocols, mitigation strategies, was really, was welcome news by our faculty. It was a hip hip hooray. And then the accreditation visit also, as a result of that, gets postponed out to 2026. I already mentioned the financial literacy credit for life there, moved to 2023. So I won't say much more about that. Next slide, please. We participated in the Great Kindness Challenge. I think that was already acknowledged in the previous school committee. LHS was receiving recognition as a kindness certified school. These are some surveys we've conducted this past year to support student mental health and wellness. This signs of suicide screening that we do annually. This behavior survey was just conducted. The results, I think, are just being processed and reviewed now by our counseling staff. I want to give a shout out to well, Archie, our LHS therapy dog, you should really have a picture of him just to say this, but he really is, he's our daily superhero at LHS, so popular with the kids, and Mrs. Elmore was instrumental in bringing him to the high school. And we provided a lot of different mental health and wellness presentations throughout the year for staff and students. The other thing I would like to mention that we're really happy to report is that we were able to resume in a full in-person fall play, and spring musical, it wasn't a movie this year, so that was a success. And student leaders just recently planned, along with staff, they collaborated with us and planned, but they deserve a lot of credit for the initiative they put behind us in helping us run the event, which was a student mental health and wellness day on Friday, last Friday, before Memorial Day weekend. Thanks to those students who are involved in that. Next slide. Here. I guess want to express my gratitude to the school committee, the central office, the tech team for helping to bring so many of these touch view screens to Littleton High School. We received an abundance of them. They're all integrated into the classes. Teachers are excited about using them. I expect they'll be using them for students, maybe interact, making presentations and using them as part of their schoolwork next school year. Expanded the use of Chromebooks, classroom applications, and other instruction technology tools. And you'll probably receive an update about this next year. We're hoping to get a little bit more competitive with our esports team, but it's very popular. There's even a state championship for it. The students who are in it are novices at this point, in the competitions, but that's something that we launched as well received by the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I would love to focus on internships. I think the more we can do, whether trades, whether professions, whether anything we can do to get our students out of the classroom into the real world, I think it's really beneficial. And I do have a question, I guess, I don't know if it's here or elsewhere. It's more of a holistic question about cybersecurity, digital citizenship, cyber safety. As committee members, we hear some bullying this, and and there's all kinds of concerns about students and technology and how they're being used in school, how they're being used technology being outside of school. I guess just a general question about not putting you on the spot, about your sense of how students' use of technology is affecting school climate. Is that?
Well, I think it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's pervasive. We were talking, I think, briefly about this at the senior reception not that long ago, and it's definitely an issue at all schools. We're not immune to it at all. There's something that comes up all the time about some mean message that a student sent, another message or posted on their social media. School administrators, teachers are confronted with this all the time as their parents. And, it's really impactful for students, and there, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of counseling has to be provided to make amends when issues happen like this. And this certainly have happened at our school this year and previous years. So we need to pay more attention to it. We are put explicit focus on that in ninth grade, but it's also that it has to start much earlier. With parent information, we did a parent presentation as part of our center procedure. So that parent and student education is going to be real critical. So it's a huge issue though throughout. I have to acknowledge it. Yeah, and we'll be talking about it this summer. Mr. Camo and I, and then bring forward to the school leadership team in the fall to think about how we can maybe make some adjustments in our handbook.
Good. Just one thing that caught my eye, which thank you for everything that you're doing. The safe driving presentation, I think it's just because of the time of year and other communities are doing it. They make a big deal out of this accident reenactment. And I was just wondering, I apologize, I don't know the answer, but do we do that regularly? Is that an annual thing that we do? Or
well, this year we actually brought back, we showed a film that was done by students, actually Littleton High School students as part of a senior project. And I forget exactly what class it was. It was like in 2013 or 2014. And it started with our teachers. I could recognize now alumni and things like that. And the person, one of the students who was involved in it was actually Nicole Patterson. She's now a police officer in another community. So she helped to put this film together, we were looking to do something this past year on how to, maybe, so we didn't want to go do the reenactment, get the fire department in. We'd already done it for past years, and we thought it might be a little too much, like everything, but manage it. And so what we did is we found this film. This Perry health teacher said, we did this years ago. Why don't we just show this to the students? So that's what we did. We showed a film. So it's kind of nice that there's that connection, that legacy piece from a classroom. It still is relevant and it's moving back to it was back then. We did a major event in addition to that, in addition to the filming of this back then. But, that's what we did this year. It's very important that we sync it up. Typically, schools do it in the spring before prom season, graduation, so right after April break. So that's the tradition in Littleton, is that we do something related to driving safety.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you.
And we do have a digital citizenship and media literacy curriculum K-8. We sent Dr. Harrington a sample curriculum for high school. They're already doing it, but we wanted to standardize it a little more, and it's really spread out through all subject disciplines at the high school level. So
I'm just glad that we're paying attention to it. I know it's something that the community's interested in and concerned about. It's pervasive. It's not unique to Littleton, but it is here, and I'm glad it has your attention.
FlexBlock will help with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of things, there's always an issue that comes up every year, multiple ones that people want to add to the curriculum or add to our program. And so if you fit it into that flex without it impacting the core instructional program, it works.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Principal Jason Everhart.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
All right. Short and sweet. All right. The middle school program plan, just like John said, a lot of this you guys have seen before, so we'll roll quickly. All right. Next slide. One of the, we really focused on two things. One was the development of an advisory program. We've had advisory at the middle school before, but we wanted to kind of break it down. I came from a district that built its schools around advisory, and so I'm trying to bring some of that idea here. So as you can see, all the things that we've talked about before about connections and building trust, we've really found that that's been extremely helpful. Some kids love it. Some kids are learning to love it. Some kids will get there, and others may not, but we'll do it. And we look forward to adding to it. Like next year, we're going to actually add a few minutes of time. We had a survey with staff, and many of them said it just wasn't enough time that we currently built in, which was great. When staff were saying we want more time to connect with kids, I was over the moon about it. Like 3/4 of the staff wanted more time. So we'll definitely do that.
So stretch it to 20 minutes, 22?
It's like 22 minutes when it's all said. It's like the perfect amount of time. Any more or less, it's too rushed or too long. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. All right, next slide. All right, again, our student support team, we've always had some form of it, but this year was, all I'll say about this is our first real baby steps, dipping toes in the water of the FST process. And so we really just wanted to set up the process, how it works. And we've already established for next year how we're going to add to it, how we're going to make it richer and more robust. I hate to use that word robust after all of the COVID talk we've had over the last 2 years, but that's how we're going to do it. And we're really looking forward to how we're going to implement that and make it an even better, more effective program for reaching kids and providing services. So we're really excited about that. But as a first year trial, I couldn't be happier with how things worked out with our SST process. All right, next slide. All right, so again, some of the same things that John talked about, some schedule changes. One of the things that we're really going to try and do, we did this year, was make map testing all in one day. And now that we have the capacity to do it with the technology, we're going to take on, I hate to commit myself to this here and now, but my goal is to make MCAS all in one day next year. Instead of having 12 to 15 days of lost instruction, can we pull it off in really 3 days? One day that everybody takes ELA, one day that everybody takes math, and then the 8th grade science. We would get two weeks of instruction back. So again, this was the baby step into this, and now we're gonna try and launch it. And I think we can pull it off. We'll get creative, but I think we can do it. All right, next slide. Again, professional development, a lot of the same stuff that we've talked about. One of the things that we're doing is working on post-COVID is dealing with some of the behavioral problems that we're seeing in our school, or that many teachers are seeing in many schools. And one of the things that we're seeing is work refusal. kids coming to school, not doing work, when they're there, just wanting to get up and leave, all the things that they were able to do while they were online. And so we had a program earlier this year where we brought in BCBAs and other people to talk to our teachers about how to work with students with these behaviors. How do you engage kids who don't want to be engaged? How do you keep them in class when they don't want to stay in class? In fact, next week we're having part 2 of that. Both of our BCBAs are going to go even further into that, sort of as a preparation for September. So for those teachers that maybe struggled with some of those students this year, giving opportunities for them to have those strategies so that they can start off on the right foot in September. So all the usual professional development stuff, but that's the key that I think we're really going to focus on is this post-COVID. How do we deal with school refusal, work refusal, and then the mental health part of it? All right, next slide. Again, same with community and communication. Some of these are, in every year kind of thing, just working with our parents, whether it's PTA or school council. Obviously, we have, newsletters and things like that. But one of the things that we're really trying to do this year is provide more opportunity for student voice and parent voice in some of the decision making. As we'll see soon when we present like the updated cell phone policy. We had a forum for parents. We've had a forum for students. We've had just to try and bring all the stakeholders in. And I think that's one of the things that I want to do or continue to do is build on that part of it so that it's not just happening within the school without input, but rather something that we really are taking the community and giving them an opportunity to help shape what we're doing. So that's the big community and communication part of it. I believe a school and its communication should not be one way. It shouldn't just be me sending out a newsletter and then you read it as passive. It should be two-way. And that's what we're trying to do. And those are hard to provide those opportunities. Elementary schools, I think those come more naturally. It's harder in a middle school, but we are working to try and figure out how do we build that two-way communication. I have some other ideas about how to bring and make. I want Littleton Middle School to be a hub of this community, a place where people want to be, to connect, to have a voice, and to be a part of the process. And so I have some things that we're going to work on to implement next year, building on what we've already done. All right, next slide. Again, climate and culture, the idea is, I'm not going to say return to normal because I don't think that's ever going to be the case, but to some kind of pre-COVID status, I think that's been a part of building this culture. People just need to feel like we have something to look forward to. I will say, the one thing I will say on this topic is we had our 7th and 8th grade dance a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting outside with the kids as they were playing and running around, and I remember thinking how lucky I am to have this job, because it was really the first time in 2 years where we got to watch kids be free and have fun and run around and enjoy each other. And it wasn't the hallways, it wasn't lunchtime. Sometimes you need those moments where you get filled up. And that was one of those nights for me. And so I was very appreciative of that. So that's what we're going to look forward to doing next year too, is bringing in some more of that, looking at some of the traditions that we've had in the past and maybe starting some new ones. Maybe it's time to let some old things go and bring in some new things and build our climate and culture that way. So I'm really excited about what we have coming up. All right, next slide. Again, technology, one of the big things was we established Cheryl Temple had built pushed for a makerspace room that we were using in our school. And it was a wonderful thing, but we found the teachers weren't really taking as much of an advantage of it as we hoped. So Julie Lord, Natalie, and Heidi McGregor put together a mobile makerspace where they made these mobile carts that had everything that needed to be transported to the classrooms. And that's been hugely successful. So that's part of what we want to do too, is beyond the Chromebooks and everything else, how do we, technology doesn't have to be something you plug in. It could be any number of things. So we want to expand our repertoire as to what we consider to be technology. Have the kids making and doing and creating to show their learning rather than just memorizing and regurgitating. So we look forward to exploring the other side of technology, not necessarily just the electronic part of it. All right, next slide. That's it. All right, any questions?
I just want to say to both you and Principal Harrington, I'm really impressed with and thankful for the innovation you guys show in terms of not constantly doing things the way they've always been done just for the sake of it, whether it was the new bell schedule that we put into place so quickly, or pushing to get the MCAS done in 3 days that can bring back so many days of learning. It's just impressive to try to do those quick turnarounds of new ways and new ways of doing things and not just resting on the status quo. So
I spent 17 years in the classroom, and in that time you spend enough time realizing what works and what doesn't. If I was principal, I would do it this way or I'd do it that way. So for me, it was time to put my money where my mouth is and trying to find the sweet spot of being a change agent without just doing change for change's sake.
Right.
And it's hard to thread that needle, and that's what we're trying to do. So thank you. I'm glad that you said that.
That's great.
All right. Very good. Anything else?
I had the same comment. I also want to just say thanks again. I appreciate first of all your candor. I think
I will always be honest with you, Brad.
That's I appreciate that.
Yes.
You and Jimmy Carter. I really, we appreciate all the celebrations, things to celebrate. But we as a school committee, we as a community know, hey, these are challenges, and we're still kind of looking for a way to address them. I think those are the conversations we need to have, and I just appreciate all of the times we have those chances to have that with the superintendent, with other staff. I just want to say that, and also your desire to increase communication, two-way communication, is something we as a committee need to do better at. It's something all of us can improve on. And I just let's just say this out loud and let's keep working on it.
I've been fortunate to work in schools where that is a priority, and so this is nothing new, and so some of it's kind of trying to bring that back. I think the other part to an earlier comment of that. I remember the famous quote by Bob Dole and Bill Clinton during one of the debates. Bob Dole talking about wanting to build a bridge to the past, right? And Bill Clinton saying, "No, we want to build a bridge to the future." And that's kind of how I look at where we are right now. We could fight to go backwards, but let's use this as an opportunity to take advantage of what we have and maybe create something really special rather than just fighting to get back to the status quo. So that's the approach we're going to take. We'll take it slow. Not everybody takes changes quickly, and as well. But I think I'm very positive that we're going to get to where we need to be. So
thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I have one question. Yeah. Hello there. So you guys are rock stars. Both you and Principal Harrington have done a great job. You guys have noted you guys have commented a lot on the great curriculum advancements that you guys made, and even with the internships. And there was just one thing that I was just wondering is, what are we working on with the kids, especially in middle school? Because in high school, they're so focused on their AP courses and getting ready for college. But how are we prepping them for kind of like the life skills, like the budgeting and not to age us all, but like the home ec, the agricultures, like the kind of life skills that they need that, I'm just wondering if there's a gap in our curriculum or if maybe I just missed something on that.
Well, it's an interesting question because I think it's a question about education in general, right? We've seen that, the need for tech and trade is something that we're going to be dealing with for years to come. And is Littleton preparing itself to provide those kind of opportunities for students? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the last time I wrote a check, but it doesn't mean that kids need to be completely oblivious to what that entails. And so I think what we'd like to do over time is start to incorporate some of that stuff, if for no other reason just to expand what students think are their possibilities that they could become someday. It doesn't necessarily have to be a four-year college degree. 60 minutes at a program or a segment on the other night. Is college worth it? Are we getting the bang for our buck? And so those are questions I think we'll have to ask ourselves as a town and individual schools. What is it that we hope to really achieve, and what do we hope to prepare our students for as we move forward? It's not a question it's a great question. I wish I could give you that answer, but I would be speaking on behalf of too many people to put my name to that. It is something that we choose to explore.
Yeah. I think that would be great to see if we can kind of have a full-rounded exposure for the kids, because we do great with the curriculum and getting them ready for college. There's always the students that might just be interested in exploring. So that's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jason.
Oh.
All right.
Handbook change.
Handbook changes.
We only have one handbook change, and that's
okay. There was a second. I don't know if it made it.
Dress code?
Dress code.
That's
Dress
in
code and cell phone policy.
That's in there.
Okay, they're both in there. All right. All right. So again, to be brief, with the change in technology, we found that our electronic device policy in the handbook was a little outdated, and it became very vague about what it is that we expect to see. And this has been an internal debate within our school and staff about the role of cell phones. Should they be in the middle school classroom? Should they not be? How do we police that? And it's difficult because I know I have half the parents that buy the cell phones for kids and send them to school with it because they want that immediate access. And I have another group of parents who want them completely banned. There's just no way to marry the two. So what we're trying to do is create a policy that allows us to be responsive It empowers teachers to make decisions for their classrooms. It has the school expectations while also allowing for, the freedom. Equality and being equal and fair are not necessarily the same thing. We're trying to create a fair policy here because some teachers have greater levels of tolerance for electronic devices in their classrooms than others. So what we wanted to do was create a cell phone policy that would reflect that. So we brought in a teacher group to offer their opinions about where we are with cell phones and what we reasonably can expect them what role they should play. We brought student groups together. And I have to be honest that the student groups were amazing. And it was so interesting to hear and we didn't just take the kids who never get in trouble, the kids who are the all-stars. We took the kids for whom we are going to be using this policy to say, and I have to tell you, 10 times out of 10, the kids were like, if this is what it is, I can live with this. And I just found it so amazing that when you involve the kids for whom these policies are written, even they were like, you know what, I can live with this. That's not asking too much. So I'm so pumped about what we came up with because of that. And then taking it out to like our school council and getting advice from them in terms of what they see, whether it's too strict, not strict enough, some of the details. So as you can see in the document, that the current policy, all the yellow, that's all stuff that we're either taking out or modifying. You can see a lot of that is dated, but also it doesn't really specifically say what we want it to. So in the revised version, we're really talking about that one block. And what we wanted to have was an opportunity for staff to, especially newer staff, people that may not have been around as much, what do I do if there's a student with a cell phone in the classroom and I don't know how to handle it? Because the previous policy just doesn't really hit to that. It just says there will be discipline, but it doesn't really say what that is. So what we wanted to do was create a document in which teachers would have the ability to be able to decide for themselves what they think is appropriate. So, for example, you'll see that the first time it's an issue, it's a warning. Many teachers live in that world of saying, listen, I don't mind continuing to give you warnings because, listen, this is, I'm okay with it. Other teachers have less tolerance, and so what we wanted to do was have a policy that reflected the needs of both ends of that spectrum. And so by giving teachers the opportunity to say, hey, after the warning, you can do this or this, this or this. And we have a flow chart that I did include here, which gives teachers that visual to be able to say, we're going to go from here to here, just so that they know what the policy is, what the expectation is, but also that they have the freedom to be able to decide for themselves and their students. Some students are chronic about it, but it doesn't mean that every student should be treated the same when something like this happens. And we wanted a policy that reflected that. And so I really like what we were able to come up with involving all three of these stakeholders. So as you can see, I'll just read it really quick. Students who use electronic devices will first receive a warning, followed by the confiscation of the device to be returned at the end of class, then confiscation of the device to be returned at the end of the school day, and eventually a requirement to surrender the device upon entry into the school building. A teacher can stay in that warning place for as long as they wanted. And when they're finally done with it and had enough, then we can talk about confiscation. But rather than just taking it and sending it to the office, what I'm looking to do is help the teachers find that accountability with students. I'm going to take your phone and you have to come back to me, students. And we are going to talk about why this is a distraction in my class, rather than me sitting in the office doing it. And so it gives teachers that opportunity to have another connection, another conversation with students about what those expectations are. If it continues to be a problem, right, then we'll take it at the office, and then they can come down and answer to me. And if that's still a problem, then we have the parents show up. So we wanted to build sort of a staggered way of dealing with this that allows students to be able to learn. Middle school students, that's part of middle school, right? Learning to make mistakes and then how to correct them. We feel like this policy would allow that to happen. And like I said, it's a little bit more streamlined, it's a little bit more specific, but also provides options for teachers as opposed to a one-size-fits-all policy regarding cell phones and electronic devices. Questions or?
I have a not fully formed thought, so bear with me. I think this is great, and I love the buy-in from the student or the feedback from students and from teachers. I'm thinking as my own daughter is sort of on the cusp of when am I getting a cell phone, but very clearly under the age of we're going to get one now. How there could be a combination of sort of a rule or what this says with a rewards is not the right word, but a sort of a culture of proactive approach, like a pledge almost.
Right.
Like how it's possible to do that in this age group, what that would look like, 30 days without a teacher confiscating your phone and you get a lunch, or you know what I'm saying? Like a combination of this and that.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing?
Well, and you bring up a good point, because the needs of a sixth grader who just got a cell phone. So for example, we live in fear of January, because all the kids that got cell phones for the holidays come in January with their phones and they can't wait. And they are wholly addicted and just staring at it. By 8th grade, it's interesting. You can sit at lunch and they're back to the conversing. So what I think is that whatever policy is for 6th grade may not work for 8th grade.
Yeah.
And so we want to leave it to our grade level teams to be able to establish what those are. So for example, I can give you this, that the 6th grade team has put in a rule. We have these cell phone holders, like the shoe holders that you put on the back of your closet. The expectation is that every student comes in and they drop their phone in that holder.
And that's across the 6th grade team.
Across the 6th grade. All teachers have agreed to it and they all enforce it.
That's
in 8th grade, that may not be the case, because some teachers might say, hey, listen, we're doing a lot of group work or a lot of project work. If you want to have your cell phone and listen to music, I'm okay as long as you're not a distraction. You've earned that right. So we want something that is dynamic, that will grow with the kids as they get older. So I agree with where you are. We're also trying to convince or trying to teach kids about appropriate use.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a restaurant and all 4 family members are sitting on a phone? Or you're trying to, I was in New York City a couple of months ago. Good luck walking around Times Square because nobody's looking up. They're all looking down at their phones. It makes it really difficult. So trying to teach kids about time and place.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sort of the importance of conversations and interactions. And, at home we've implemented a no cell phones at the table sort of thing. So like, is there some sort of like positive culture versus you're on your phone, you're in trouble, but like, we're sort of, I don't know.
We don't have a set plan, but you know what? It's an interesting idea just to say, like, listen, rather than focusing on the punitive part of it, why don't we focus on
or a combination of
the praising? Yeah. But it's also about those behaviors, because our hallways are tight.
Yeah.
And so it's about teaching kids. And so maybe, instead of focusing just on what's not going right, a lot of schools focus on when you're doing something well, I'm gonna give you something right in the moment. So maybe we go back to that too, about catching kids doing something good, as opposed to something they're not supposed to.
2 things, like maybe like a device-free Tuesday or something like that, or lunch like that. I love it. But before we start giving like free lunches, if these prices go up, I mean, we got a budget to consider here. Maybe everything like a way to really focus on the soft skills of conversation and eye contact.
You bring up a good point about January, and if that's where a month where you see it really spike, is is that a specific month to think about? I don't know.
Yeah, and we have a lot of 6th grade parents who will say, I'm thinking about getting my kid a cell phone. What do you think? And every time I say, don't. Please. So as a school, we try to dissuade parents from doing that. But we also understand these are the realities of it.
Yeah.
As a district, we always promoted the appropriate use of technology. And we're finding at the middle school this year, we're not as confident that they're ready for that, especially in grade 6. So what Jason's done is he's trying to meld expectations at a specific grade level. But our intent is to develop responsible usage of technology. We can't expect students to develop good habits if we don't give them an opportunity. So that is a premise of our philosophy in our district.
Right. And I think that's what this revised version will allow us to do. It'll just give them the freedom without the ambiguity of the previous version, where you could read it one way or another depending on your perspective. So we want something a little bit more cut and dry. But I think it's the empowering the students and empowering the educators to decide what's right for them as a grade, as a teacher, as a student, and have that conversation.
Is there a so I think you guys have done a really great job defining that, because I think it was pretty vague before. Is there a way we could also incorporate having kind of incorporating this education with the kids, having kind of like those safe spaces where phones are socially kind of not unacceptable, but unnecessary, like in the cafeteria and the library? I mean, those are things that as adults, it's difficult for us to stray away from the phones, but when they're in middle school, to know when you're sitting with your peers at lunch and you're not doing curriculum, now's the time to socialize with your peers right here. Or when you're at the library and you're supposed to not be disturbing other people or doing things like that. Is there a way to maybe incorporate that kind of social expectation for them as well?
Well, you know, it's an interesting point because over the last 2 or 3 years, I've really watched our students at lunch and to see how they interact, because this idea that they're not socializing. And I will tell you this, they actually are socializing. They may not do it in the face-to-face way that you and I grew up with and are comfortable with, but they can sit across the table from each other and be playing a game against each other, and they're talking to each other. Now, the eyesight and the handshakes and the things like that are lacking, but there is a connection between kids, and I think it's important to note that they're not sitting there silent, completely disengaged. There are some, but many students actually are interacting with each other. And that brings in issues around social media and how we're dealing with that appropriately and those kind of things. But there is actually some socialization going on. What we'd like to do, I think what we're trying to get to is the idea that kids have a time and place to use their phones, and lunch could be one of them. So rather than just needing to go to the bathroom, for example, so they can check their phone, how many students do I have to go in who've been in the bathroom for 20 minutes because they're watching videos on their phone? It's regular, right? So eliminating that, and then if you wanted to watch something at lunch or connect with lunch, you'd have that. So providing times. So I guess what I'm offering is almost the inverse of saying there are times where these phones can be used, and there are times that we want to move people away from it. And that's the hope, is that responsible use part of it. So you can still sit with friends, you can talk, you can chat, and have your phone. There are ways to do it, and that's what we're going to try to build.
Great. Sounds good.
Yep. Thanks, Stacy. My comment was, this is a tricky subject, and I like the way that the revision took place here with the community stakeholders and getting the students involved. Sure. I think that's absolutely powerful. The January and the 6th graders, do we do something like October, November for parents to say, geez, if you're thinking about this, yeah, like a forum, like a community outreach to say, if you're going to do it, there are ways to do it where you're not going to set yourself up for disaster. Because I think having the parents get out in front of it and do it well in conjunction with the school trying to do it well is a big piece. And I don't know if we're offering that yet, but
we offer it. We do parts of the classes where, you know, appropriate use, those kind of things. But here's what I will say on back to school night in September when the 6th grade parents come in.
Yes.
It's about the second sentence that I say. Hi, I'm Jason Everhart. I'm the principal of Littleton Middle School. Please don't buy your child a cell phone until they're ready for it. And that's hyperbole, but not much hyperbole. Right?
Yeah.
Because we want to lead with that, because we know that a lot of families are on the fence. Kids that are having birthdays between that time. Right?
Sure.
We want to address it early, and then to talk about the ills of social media and sort of how that plays out. So we do it in those larger group moments. Not really sent out anything, you know, to families in terms of something written. My first year in Littleton, I had arranged for Mary and Ryan, the Middlesex DA, to come to our school to do a discussion around social media. 2 parents showed.
Yeah.
And that was hard because it was like, you know, she's busy, and yet she was willing to give up her time and have a whole presentation, which was fantastic. We just didn't see the community interest in it at that time. Now that was 5 years ago, so maybe things have changed.
I know we did the Connections series. So if that comes back in the fall, maybe that we could address that there, because that has already got the ball rolling.
Well, I will tell you, probably, this is not, again, not hyperbole, probably 75% of the behaviors that I deal with are social media related. Either they started on social media or they are heightened by it. It almost takes up every bit of time that I have during the day. When I deal with bullying or I deal with this, there's almost always a social media.
Right.
So I think if we can learn to work with parents, that two-way communication to help that, I'd be open to any idea.
Great.
That will help that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
What percentage of the 6th grade class would you say is?
Hard for me anecdotally to say. I think when we started September, it's probably around a third. By the time we get to April break, almost all. You do have a few holdout parents who are like, nope, I refuse. Thank you. But for the most part, by then, I imagine there's probably a peer pressure. My kids are in their 20s, so I don't know what it's like to have to fight this fight. For those of you that have younger kids, I imagine it's probably a constant argument at the dinner table about, I want a cell phone, no, you're not ready for it. But I think a lot of parents end up acquiescing, which is understandable. And that's just something that we have to be, ready to respond to, and hopefully be proactive and not reactive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna a second bet. I think having the parent resources is something that's really, really helpful, because I think there's so much amongst kids and then it trickles down to their parents. But if they had a few more resources from the schools as to what the benefits, what the drawbacks are, if they're going to do it, how to approach it, I think that would just be such a huge resource for us, especially if you're saying, I mean, if 75% of your issues are caused in social media, I mean, can you imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't dealing with all that stuff?
Yeah.
Right?
I could conquer the world if I had that much of my day back.
Yeah. I just think that's just amazing that's such a that's causing so much of your time that you're dealing with those issues. So just helping parents, I think, just needs to be a huge initiative to help them feel kind of like they're together in this, because that's the tough thing is it's like once one gets it, then like you said, by April, everybody has one.
And to be honest, Stacey, I think it's also important to have an honest conversation. I mean, the reality of it is, if the data shows most students have multiple social media accounts and secret accounts that their families don't know about. Right. That is difficult for some families to hear when they say, well, my child tells me everything. They might, but they may not. And we have to have that conversation. And so sometimes kids post things that are completely shocking to families, but unfortunately they haven't learned that, your name's on it, it's date, time stamped, and those kind of things. So there's a lot of work ahead on this. But I think
a great start. You did a really good job just making this more detailed so that everyone knows kind of what the expectations are. So I think started a really good trend on improving and seeing what works.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, let's do this. In the spirit of moving the meeting along, we may have stumbled across a topic that we're interested in learning more about or getting better at, and that might be something that we look to tackle in the fall.
Done.
Because we've morphed away from policy to everyone having ideas. Right. So are you looking for a school committee vote to accept this change? Or an acknowledgement that we're okay with it?
No, past practice for this school committee has been we've approved handbook changes. Before you do that, Jason has one small change in his dress code.
Okay, I didn't know if we were going to take them one at a time, but
do them together.
All right.
The dress code one is small, and it's really just more of getting rid of some of the ambiguous language. We currently allow hats and hoods at Littleton Middle School. One of the questions then is, are they always allowed every class all over the place? And so what we simply did is made a simple change to say hoods and hats can be worn in common areas. And then again, to empower teachers, this is your classroom. If your rule is I want to see your face and I want you to remove your hood, you should have the authority to do that. And so that's all this does, is just simply put into, it just codifies that idea that, listen, your classroom, your rules, we will support you as administrators, but always cafeteria, the kids have the freedom to do that. And that's all that changes for.
Just one quick comment. I like the way you address this. About the dress code in general, I really like that this dress code doesn't seem to police girls' bodies more than boys.
It's very important to me that we don't.
It's not always the case. And so I read this closely for that. And this seems to be gender neutral. And I really, really like that. The bandanas part just strikes me like it's really from the 80s gang movie. Is that what this is? Are we thrashing on skateboards?
Well, there was an incident, a couple of incidents, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, where the kids started wearing, and whenever you have anything that can appear to be gang affiliated, people get very nervous. And so we, Cheryl and I spent a lot of time, do we add this to the policy? So this was 4 or 5 years ago. It's also outdated at this point. That being said, I left it in just because, but you're right. I was, if you've ever seen breakdancing movies, know that.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo, baby. Yes. It may be outdated, but I chose to leave it in there just for the sake.
I appreciate that too.
Great.
Okay. So there are no other questions at this time. The school committee can entertain a motion to accept the middle school handbook policy changes as presented.
I move to accept the changes as presented.
Motion made by Gold, seconded by Austin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we'll record that as unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your work.
Jason.
Thank you.
All right, I'm up next. Try to make up a couple of minutes here.
That's right.
I'm pleased to be able to present to you this evening the list of colleges and universities that our graduates are attending next year. Quite a broad list. It's nice to see that some of our students are attending the same colleges and universities so that they'll know somebody right off the bat. This is a little unusual, but I'm really pleased about this. We have 4 students that are entering apprenticeship programs. Just so you know, we have opportunities for our students beyond grade 8 to decide to go to Schcmte Tech. And these students have decided to stay with us, obviously, and pursue apprentice programs after they finished high school. And we have 1 student entering the workforce at this point in time.
Great, thanks for sharing. A wonderful list of universities and colleges, and not to say that employment or apprenticeship isn't an appropriate choice for those students. So it's nice to see that everyone's accounted for. Thank you for compiling that list.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, we will move along. Steve, Mark, you are up with a to round out a year on the cost center descriptions.
Yep, I'll make this quick and short. They're pretty simple cost centers. Just as a reminder, we have 8 cost centers. We've gone through the first 6 throughout the year, so the last 2 are transportation and facilities and maintenance. So we'll get right into it. So transportation, it's a annual budget, appropriated budget for this year of a little over 1.2 million. It's 5.5% of the appropriated budget. So that includes both regular yellow school bus transportation as well as special education transportation. And you can see the breakdown here. 476,000 appropriated for yellow regular school bus transportation, and a little over 700,000 for special ed transportation. Yellow bus transportation, school bus transportation. Our current contractor is D-Bus. This year we had 1,061 registered students registered to ride the bus. That's about what it normally is. That fluctuates up and down.
It went down last year with the COVID. Okay.
Yeah. It went down last year. It's been as high as 1,200 in some years. It all depends on the makeup of the families and the addresses and things like that. So just as also a reminder to school committee, bus fees, that generates approximately $100,000 a year in bus fees. Again, that goes up and down depending on the riders. Those fees are used to pay for the bus contract expenses. And that's basically that whole cost center transportation line.
So the 100,000 goes to pay for the 476?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, because the cost of the contract is much more than 476. Yeah. Special education transportation. Again, our current contractor from most of our out-of-district transportation is Case Collaborative. We do use other contractors that is needed if Case can't provide that service. We also have some parents that drive their students themselves, and we reimburse them for the mileage as well. This is both in-district and out-of-district transportation, so we do have some special needs students that get transported to programs within Littleton. They also get transported out of Littleton as far as where it's Beverly, Boston, Metro West areas. It's a significant geographical area that students get transported to depending on the program that they are enrolled in. Again, that's a little over 700,000 is what's budgeted. That's about 3.4% of the appropriated budget. And that's basically transportation. The last cost center is maintenance and operations. Again, just a high level look. We have 4 public buildings. It's a little over 345,000 square feet. This also includes alumni field operations. This includes custodial salaries. We partner, and as a reminder, we partner with Park and Rec and the Highway Department for field maintenance. So they take care of the field maintenance. Park and Rec gets to use our buildings for Camp Tehadawon and their programs. And that's the trade-off. This also includes utilities, the gas, electric, phone, our energy manager. That's a little over $500,000. Again, this goes up and down. This year, it's more than $500,000, much more because of the increase in the fuel cost. The fact that we had windows open for COVID reasons and things like that. So that's normally what we budget. This year is a little bit more than that. We also contract with HVAC maintenance providers, custodial contractors. These are all of our service contracts, generator, roof maintenance, elevator service. Everything has to be inspected annually by the state. We have to have contractors for that. Security systems. There's a whole list here. I won't go in all of it, of other items that are covered in that operations maintenance. And again, that's a very high level. That was kind of the intent, was just to let everybody know kind of what the big cost centers are in those areas. So thank you very much, and I can answer questions if there are any.
Comments or questions from the committee?
So thank you. Good, thank you.
Yep, I think we'll probably dive into some of the more details of the transportation related to school start times.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
And just on the topic, I mean, you've got the intruder alarm systems, security, access security cameras, all that stuff. I mean, in light of recent events, just want to hear that we don't have any deferred maintenance in those areas. And
no, there's no deferred maintenance. If a camera goes down, we get it repaired right away. We have card access on most of the doors in the schools, and the staff have card access to that, fobs and card access. No, there's no deferred maintenance on any of that.
Okay.
Everything's operating.
It's a good opportunity for me to say 3 sentences in terms of safety. Safety continues to be our top priority in our district for staff and students. We have completed a number of upgrades through the last few years, including communication system upgrades, surveillance system upgrades, and we meet regularly with the police department, fire department. I've had 5 conversations with Chief Bernard last week, and we're being vigilant, and we'll continue to be vigilant. So we're reviewing our procedures as we do every year, and always looking for better ways to keep our schools secure without taking away the learning environment that we need for our students to flourish. And I want to emphasize that last phrase of the sentence. We've worked on response times as well with our police department, so we know what those response times are. We rely on their expertise in terms of situations that may require their assistance, and they maintain their training, and we rely on them to continue to advise us. So I feel we're in a good spot at this point in time.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I believe that we all heard from some community members over the past couple weeks. And while we're wrapping up this school year, I think it might be a topic that the community wants a deeper dive on in the fall. So I think that might be appropriate to just review that so that everyone's got all the information. And
we are anticipating offering an evening for families, parents to find out a little more about ALICE training. ALICE training isn't just for schools. It can come in handy for wherever you are if you ever find yourself in an uncomfortable position. So our intention is to bring that training with an evening for families.
Wonderful. All right. That concludes the presentation portion of the meeting. I want to congratulate everybody for getting through that and thank everyone for sticking to their allotted times. Moving right along, we've got a couple old business items here, the first of which being track maintenance funds, a vote to accept funds over $5,000. Steve Mark's going to give us some information related to a gift in the amount of $40,000 from the Littleton Road Race Track Organization.
Right. So we received the check. There's a copy of it under the screen. The camera may or may not pick that up. They presented the check to us. There is a policy. The school committee has to vote to accept any gift that's over $5,000. So that's what we need tonight is a gift for school committee to accept the $40,000. The $40,000 from the track organization is specific toward uses of the track. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, we had the MOU between the school committee and the track organization that outlined what that use was. This is just a follow-up to that MOU agreement and the funds transfer.
Beautiful. Thank you for the explanation. At this point in time, we should set the nomination.
We do need a motion.
Yeah, a motion.
I move we accept the $40,000 from the from the Littleton Road Race Track Organization with great gratitude.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, mark that as unanimous. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll take good care of those funds.
The funds are already, so.
Awesome. Good work. Moving right along, Shaker Lane Building Committee discuss to organize a Shaker Lane New Building Project Committee. I'll ask Dr. Clenchey to speak to this.
Today I sent you a memo that I sent Town Administrator Anthony Sally. I've met with Anthony, the town lawyer, Steve Mark, a couple of times. We took a look at the history of building committees within the town of Littleton. And what we've done is pretty well replicated what's been done in the past. We also took a look at what the charge of the building committee was in the past. You can see from the memo I sent today that I listed potential membership and the committee charge. As per how business is done in Littleton, the select board is the official board that has purview to finalize the membership of the building committee and also determine the committee's charge. And with that, if you don't have any questions, it would be nice to have somebody nominated tonight for the school committee to serve on the building committee.
Sure. I don't have any questions. If I recall from our subcommittee discussion, previous meeting, I think we had a couple members that would be interested in this type of role. Stacy, you're sitting on the PMBC committee. I know you attended their meeting, and Steve, you were there as well, so they got some of this information. But I mean, if I remember correctly, I think it was Stacy and Bino that were most interested.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for me to be involved with it. I think, especially if I'm on PMBC, so I can join.
That makes sense to me.
Does anybody else want to join me?
Well, we have one
official chair, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's me. Right. Okay.
I'll love her to do it.
Okay. Oh.
To move for Stacy.
Yeah, let's do that.
I move to nominate Stacy for the committee.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded by Patel. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Record that as unanimous. Thank you, Stacy.
No problem. I'm excited.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And Lynn, you're probably up, right, with the COVID-19 dashboard update?
That's okay.
You're waiting.
I can say good news. Our rates are going down. Dorothy provided me with just this week's numbers, and we are in really good shape. The rates we're at near zero rates again, which is there it is, which is good. And so at the middle school, we did have a number of cases on Monday, but we're continuing to see a decreasing trend overall, which is good. So I think last time we met, I said I think we're getting out of the woods, and I think we're out.
Yes, please do.
Because we still are having cases, but I just got a couple alerts that through our pool testing, because I get an email every time.
Yeah.
We get a positive case, so we just get it happens, but our numbers are looking really good.
So if I'm reading this, so we're 1, 6, 9, and 0 across the board for the 4 schools as of today, except for the most recent data, which came in literally minutes ago.
Yes, and those are.
Okay. This is a very up-to-date presentation.
Real time.
Yes. That's terrific. I'm glad to see that the numbers are where we hoped they would be.
Yeah, the middle school was, we were really a little bit of time with the middle school, and we started to have a little bit of dip, and then they creeped up again, and now I think the variability is stabilizing.
Okay.
And I'm hoping for a nice, quiet finish to the school year.
3 weeks.
Great.
Great.
It's not intended to turn into a long question, but since it's the last meeting of the year, there is no ongoing testing next year.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to that. So we will be distributing to our summer program attendees and summer staff the at-home antigen test, the weekly at-home. So I just placed the order for that the other day. So we will be doing that. We will not be continuing pool testing for the summer. We did not pool test last summer either. And I think we had only one case throughout the entire summer during our summer program, which was great. So at-home tests will be available, and staff who work will be able to access them as well. And then the state program is ending as of the end of this school year.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for the update, Lynn. All right. That concludes old business. Moving on to new business. Not too far behind here. Leah's out there, I guess.
She's right here.
Oh, sure, Leah. Hi. I'm sorry. I've emailed you. I've talked to you. I don't think I've ever met you in person. So we are going to receive a food service program review and meal prices from the. I guess it's a joint made presentation with Steve and Leah. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience while we waited to get to you.
Let me pull this up, and before she starts, I would just like to introduce, so this is obviously Leah Buckner. She just finished her first year with us. So she's done a absolutely fantastic job. She had to jump in and literally with both feet. I think you started, what, 2 weeks before school started? So she had a steep learning curve, and she's done an absolutely fantastic job. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Leah to talk about her presentation, and I'll get it up here in just a second.
I'd like to echo that, Leah. You've done a wonderful job. So fortunate to have you.
Give me a second.
No peanut butter for the rest of the year.
Sorry, I'll just say sorry.
Okay, all yours.
Thank you. So thanks for having me here. I'm excited to meet everyone. I just want to do a quick introduction of myself because I know it's the first time I'm seeing you, but I have my degree in nutrition from Birmingham State University. I have about 9 years of school nutrition experience, and I'm excited to be here. So when I started the year, I wanted to see what the pulse of the community was. So I immediately sent out a survey. I asked parents what they want to see, what they've been seeing. And a lot of the feedback I got was they want more fresh fruits and vegetables. They want more vegetarian options, things like that. So as you can see by my pictures, that's kind of the theme I went with this year. So we have a new hummus box, which is really popular with the Russell Street School and the Shaker Lane students, which is great. You know, you just love to see them eat their fruits and vegetables. We started having lunches on half days. Right now it's kind of like a grab and go kind of thing. So I think that's great just because you don't know where kids are going after school. You don't know if they're going straight home to eat or if they have sports, things like that. So any opportunity we have to feed the children, I'm all for. We started a new kind of like a try-day Tuesdays with our younger children. And as you can see in the picture, they're trying asparagus, which is a big deal. And on that note, we started, I really wanted to get some local produce because, you know, there's so much farmland around here. So I hooked up with a local fruit and vegetable vendor. So that's on the next slide. So I have been working with Springbrook Farm, which is a walk up the road here. And so far we brought in asparagus, which the kids are, you know, they're lukewarm about, but at least they tried it. We tried the strawberries, which are delicious. That went over better. And we also, so we got lettuce. We've been doing their lettuce a little bit here and there, and it's been fresh and delicious. And like I said, we have the try days for our younger children. I didn't want to overwhelm them with having that be their only vegetable, so they kind of have a sample cup and they try it, and it's very cute. In the fall, we'll be doing apples from Fairview Orchards up in Groton, so I'm excited for that too. Just real quickly, I talk about what we're doing, but I really want to talk about who's doing it. I'm really proud of the staff. Their numbers, we're feeding a lot of kids as what they're used to. Every month, it's at least 50% more, something around there, children eating daily. So I really just want to shout out to the staff. They're doing a great job. I really appreciate them taking my ideas to life. And, the first couple of times I walked in with a thing of kiwis, they looked at me like I was crazy, but now they're getting it, and I'm proud of them. That's it. Next slide. So less pretty pictures, but so I had my, the food service programs every 3 years have a nutrition review from Jessie. And the one finding from that review was that our current lunch prices are below the minimum required price, and that's set by reimbursement rates federally. So the minimum rates that they are asking are $3.31. Right now, I'll start with right now. Right now, we're charging a student meal $2.85, and they're asking us to go to $3.31. That's the mandatory minimum amount. And for an adult lunch, $3.69 is our current, and $5 with meal tax is the minimum required price. And that being said, this is under the assumption that we are going to go back to paid meals. It's not in the federal budget to continue free meals. The state is working on a bill currently. The House included it in their budget, but the Senate did not in Massachusetts. So we're kind of waiting, playing a little waiting game there. But so this is if we do return to paid meals for students. So that's really it. Thank you for your time, and any questions?
I have questions. These pictures look beautiful, and I love to see that you are giving the kids such variety. It makes my heart melt. I love it. But as a mom who feeds kids a very colorful plate, I guess my question for you is, how much waste is there? Are the kids eating this across all the schools, or are we finding that there's actually a lot of food waste? It's just a curiosity question.
So I guess that was my idea. I don't want to waste our try foods. That's my idea. Sample cups and things like that, where on their plate we're going with things they're used to, broccoli, peas, So there is, of course, some waste, as with any child, but we try our smaller apples. We get the smallest apples we can, just because they take those 2 bites, and it is something I watch for.
Yeah.
We can work on finishing the plate.
Yeah. Do we do anything with any of the food waste? Do we recycle, post it, or do anything?
Sure. So at this point, more COVID than not, we don't. I am looking into, share tables, all that sanitation. You have to follow pretty strict rules. That I love. So I'm going to look into that. I'm really excited for the next few years. I have ideas. So
there was a composting club at the middle school for a while. I'm not sure if that's still going on. I remember years ago we had reached out to some local farmers about using some of the food waste. I think a lot of that didn't happen when COVID hit, and just the logistics of weeding out the food waste with the paper waste and trying to sort all that. And then how do we store it in a safe place that doesn't attract rodents and animals and things like that. So there would be a lot of logistics, and not that we can't figure it out, but yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you so much for your presentation and also talking about your background. It's really helpful to hear sort of perspective and the experience that you're bringing into this. You can really see, you know, the importance of fruits and vegetables and the partnerships and all of that you're bringing, which is so wonderful. I think my question was around if I've heard from a lot of parents wanting to talk about this, or is there a forum where they can give feedback or they can give suggestions, or particularly the vegetarian kind of like it's no meat Mondays. I hear about it often. And so is there a place to give suggestions on that? I've heard from some parents that usually the Monday options revolve around cheese, and some kids don't always eat cheese. So is there a way to incorporate an option that's not so heavy on dairy, or, you know, some feedback like that? What would be a good forum to give that?
You can always email me, always.
Yeah, we also have a health and wellness committee
in
town, and so that would be a great forum to reach out through those. There's teachers, Natalie Courteau, our technology manager, is also on that health and wellness committee. That's a great forum to reach out and give some feedback to the program.
Great. I think there's also a lot of interest in helping out. If you know, if you're interested in like additional farm partnerships and things like that, there's a lot of parents that have said we'd love to help out in creating those. You're one very busy person, so if help is wanted, then there's definitely interest.
That's great. And I actually, I have a meeting next week with a Girl Scout group that I think is talking about like kind of more cultural, you know, variations to our menus. So I'm excited, and I'd love to email me for everyone.
Great. I'm very passionate about this, so I will probably email you.
We'll see each other.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks very much. Presentation was wonderful.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah. And I'd just say, based on that, Jason, I think another growth area would be PowerPoint design, because that was, I mean, we got to up the game here.
She certainly blows mine out of the water.
Yeah. Just saying. That wasn't meant to be evaluation of staff member of dollars. Sorry.
I appreciate feedback and accountability.
So there is a motion.
Right.
I would just like to explain a little bit about the second half of the motion.
Okay.
So the attempt in the motion, we would like the ability to adjust that lunch price on an annual basis as approved by the superintendent, just to help keep up with the inflation and the COLA rates. Usually we've been in this cycle where we haven't increased lunch price here in Littleton in 7 or 8 years at least.
I would say 11.
Yeah.
11
so
years.
it's been a long time. So we get in this cycle where we have a lunch price and inflation comes up and the program loses money, and we're trying to get ahead of that and allow us to be able to keep up with that inflation factor. And that's what's in that motion.
Okay. Is the 331 the right number, or is 331 just the minimum number? The lowest
331 is the minimum number at this point in time.
Is that the same thing as being the right number for our budget, or?
It's
I want to keep it as low as possible for our families.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep it as low as possible, keep it the minimum, and then it's hard to use the last year or two as baselines because the meal counts are up because it's been free to everybody. So it's hard to go back and say where do we think the meal count is going to be if we start charging again. So this is the minimum to get up to where we need to, and then we can assess it from there.
Sorry, and also it's a mandatory minimum. So what are we? Like, does it require a vote?
Yeah.
Ash, even if it's mandatory, in this case, it does require a vote for the school. And so.
Are we adjusting the criteria with this increase for any families that need assistance? Like, is that going to be something that's going to be evaluated as well if that jump ends up?
That level of assistance for families is generated by the United States Department of Agriculture, and they update those income levels on an annual basis.
Okay, so those are probably based off the minimums that they're also requiring, I assume? Or maybe...
and that a little bit better than I did.
Yeah, so are we talking, so free students would still be free,
Right.
Reduced students would be 40 cents for lunch, 30 cents for breakfast, just like it has been in the past. That hasn't changed yet.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
The new guidelines for income requirements come out over the summer too. So
right. They usually come out July 1, I think. Yeah.
What portion of the appropriated budget covers food services?
So we've been appropriating in the budget about $35,000 a year to help cover the food service.
That's it?
Program. That's it.
Okay. All right.
This year, next year's budget, we increased it a little bit to help cover the inflationary factor for some of the salary costs.
Okay.
But it's still a very small portion. Their food service program is supposed to be or pretty close to a self-sustaining operation. It hasn't been for a couple of years.
Okay.
Because our prices have been very low.
Right.
What does that 35,000 cover? Because that seems low, but then what's actually covering?
It covers everything from salaries to supplies and materials. We assess the balance in the food service operation at the end of the year, and then adjust it in or out of the appropriated account as we need to balance that.
How many lunch staff do we have across? Is this for all the schools?
Yeah.
But the 35 is only a supplement.
Correct. It's just right. The 35 is just supplemental.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, wow. Okay.
Supplemental to help the food service operations if revenues are not there to support the actual expenses.
Right.
And we've been getting federal money to pay for all those meals.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
That's right. And it would be pretty hard to zero out the food services budget with healthcare costs going up the percentages they do every year. COLA increases as well. We're not seeing those increases with Chapter 70 every year. So it's not uncommon for school committees, school districts to contribute significantly more than that. So we're doing really well.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion as printed in the agenda to approve an increase for fiscal year 2023 meal price to $3.31 for student meals and $5 for adult meals. To authorize the superintendent to review and approve an annual increase in meal price, no more than 4% annually, to meet inflationary increases as needed.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Austin, seconded by Ms. Gold. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Mark that as unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah.
Leah, thanks for coming. MASC delegate forum. Yeah.
We had this on the last agenda as well. If we don't have somebody that wants to jump on board tonight, that's fine. Just that we get a $50 discount if we register somebody before the end of June. So I want to, respect the fact that November's a long time away, and if you have an opportunity to attend this conference for a day or two, recommend that you do. You meet a lot of seasoned school committee members, and there's a lot of good workshops, and it's a great way to network as well.
No, Timberland went last year. I think she said it was really valuable.
Yeah, she had an enjoyable experience. Got a lot out of it. Is there anybody that can commit to going to it now? If not, we'll just move on. I know that I personally could not commit at this point in time. Stacy, was that a yes from you?
Nope. Hi.
Table it for now.
Yeah, we'll have to table it for now.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. That concludes the new business portion of the meeting. At this point in time, we have our second opportunity to hear from interested citizens.
We do have
Yeah. Can't tell who it
Hello,
is.
sir. Good morning. Please
Oh.
state your name, your street, and any question, please.
Hi, Erica Podgorny, 6 Fox Lane. I'd like to talk to you tonight in the wake of another horrific school shooting. While I fully believe that the solution to this problem is federal gun control laws, there are steps we can take locally. Many of the perpetrators of these shootings were kids who were bullied at school. I believe Littleton needs to address the issues of bullying. In my time on the school committee, I did try to bring this up on occasions and heard things like it does not rise to the level of bullying or instances labeled as microaggressions. This has not been my personal experience in the school. I have had a child who was bullied, and I have spoken with other parents who also had children experience bullying. I would like to take a moment to share my experience. My child was bullied from 4th grade until they left Littleton schools to go to Parker in 7th grade. At first, my child did not share what was happening. It should not be the responsibility of a child to keep themselves safe. That responsibility lies in the adults. When we eventually found out what was going on, we immediately went to talk to the school administration. My child would not share the names of the bullies because they were afraid of retaliation. We were told by administration that nothing could be done if we did not share the names. That is untrue. They knew where it was happening, they knew when it was happening, and they knew who it was happening to. They could have protected my child. These types of trauma are not without long-term consequences. For my child, that anger and hatred turned inward and manifested itself as self-hatred, self-harm, and suicidal ideation. For other children, that anger and hatred may turn outward towards students, teachers, and the school in general. I know this is a huge task, but it is doable. All of my children have attended Parker. They prioritize knowing students well, having teachers develop strong personal connections with students, developing positive relationships between students through fun, through games, through community conversations and community projects. When conflicts do arise, they focus on conflict resolution rather than punishment. I'm sorry, I had a whole thing prepared and my computer shut down and I had to rewrite it. So that's kind of where I ended when I was rewriting. But I just think this is something that we need to focus on. I don't want another child to experience what my child did. Saying that, you know, when we look at the numbers and 99.9% of the kids say that they're happy in their school, that's wonderful. We need to find that 0.1%. We need to make sure that every child feels safe at school. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate that. The open and honesty of that. I think it's a topic that's certainly worth a deeper dive. And we're going to have our summer workshop. We're going to plan an agenda for next year. I know it's an initiative that I'd like to explore and make sure that we're doing the very best we can for all the students in Littleton. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we close that section, anybody else have their hand up? Okay. Moving right along, we've got subcommittee reports. Doing pretty well here. So PMBC, Stacy?
Hold on one second.
Sure.
Oh, hold on one second. Sorry. I don't have too much of an update other than we're just starting the process. I don't have all the technical terms just yet. I'm still just dipping my toes in, so I apologize. But the process is being started. I think there is there's a system that we are going to be initiating that brings us through the different processes that we need to start the Shaker Lane project. So that, I'm sorry if you hear my cat meowing. I'm sorry, I don't have too much of an update on you. As you know, it's been kind of a crazy time for me, so.
Yeah, no, I can provide a
ahead,
follow-up on that. So the Shaker Lane Building Committee, their Phase 1 MSBA eligibility period starts July 1. We've already started, as we know tonight, to form that building committee. Board of Selectmen, I notified PMBC of the letter that the superintendent wrote. I forwarded that to PMBC tonight as well, and they will be looking at that. And I know Finance Committee is aware of it as well. I'd also like to give a quick update on the high school roof situation, which is also a PMBC project under control of the PMBC. So that project is coming to the end of the design phase with the engineers. I spent most of this morning on the high school roof with the engineer. We actually did some destructive testing up on the roof. So they're finalizing their specifications for the roof project. There's some repair work, there's some brickwork that needs to be done up there as well. And then that will be going out to bid. And hopefully that project is still, they tell me that project is still on track to be done this summer before school starts in the fall. So I just wanted to give everybody that update that that project is still ongoing and moving forward.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And Stacey, thanks for being able to attend that meeting. I think it was last week, and just jumping right in with that task.
Yeah.
Budget subcommittee. We don't have anything to, no report from the budget subcommittee. We have a number of updates here from the policy subcommittee. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Austin. Sure. Walk us through. I believe these are first readings.
These are first readings. And so the purpose of that is to just give you an update of what potential policy, the proposed policy changes could be. No votes tonight, obviously, and a chance to get committee input. We just heard from Erica about bullying. They're one of these bullying prevention, and there might be a chance, if not a big discussion tonight. The next reading, which will be next school year, this is a chance for us as a school committee, as Justin just said, to really take a hard look at this in our retreat, and then to bring it to the community's attention and maybe focus on it more if we want to really dive in on that before we consider passing any changes to that one in particular. But most of these, the heart of these suggested changes come to us, Dr. Clungy can remind us, at the suggestion of our lawyer, right? We talked about, elections have consequences. The new federal administration has different kind of guidelines for interpreting Title IX and other things, and want to make sure that our policies reflect now national policy. And so we have to be flexible here for this. So a lot of them are just making sure our policies are streamlined. They're not repeating each other, and they reflect the preferred language now from the federal government. It's about non-discrimination in particular. What we have in front of us is a new non-discrimination and harassment policy. It's more comprehensive. It's the new policy AC. And just to explain what's going on is the suggestion is to the policy committee from the superintendent, and then from the policy committee to the school committee, is to approve eventually at the next reading a revised policy AC, and then eliminate policy ACA, policy ACAB, and policy ACE, which all address different part of discrimination, but we want to get it all in one policy so it's clear and so our procedures are clear. Okay. So the main thing, and Dr. Clungy, correct me if I'm missing something here, is that the new policy AC has a single list of protected categories, and it's a more comprehensive list. Genetic identity, I'm looking at it now, pregnancy status, ethnic background and ancestry, veteran status. Instead of having all these different policies around disability and having them different policies throughout the handbook or policy guidebook, we want to put them all in one place so we make a very clear statement that we, in the school system and the people with whom we deal, and vendors and others, are not going to discriminate in any way. Is that a fair summary of it, Dr. Clungy?
That is, and we're also streamlining our investigative protocols as well for harassment and any discrimination investigations that we do, and the other investigation that we do as well. Our lawyer is taking a look at those, and we're trying to be as consistent as we can, so we don't have our school-based administrators looking at 6 different protocols to use when they're doing an investigation.
So we'll entertain any questions you have about either the potential elimination of certain of these policies or the adoption of this umbrella policy. If we haven't had a chance to
if you want them on the screen, I have them available on the screen if you want.
That I'll defer to the committee for that. I'm going to look at them together and kind of.
So we've all had a chance to review them because they were in the packet or a version of the packet. believe we're going to have plenty of time here.
Yeah.
To in between first reading and second reading, I believe that if any of us have questions, we could probably contact either Brad or
Sure, and the community can as well, right? Because these are the core of who we are. Correct. Is hey, we're going to treat everybody fairly, and we're not going to discriminate. We want to make sure we get this language right. We have plenty of time between now and September when we vote on it, but just want to make sure that that's be really clear. That's what we're trying to do here, and we think these policies reflect that. It'll make it easier for the administration and for the public to understand the policies and administer them. So that's those.
Okay.
Are we okay with those for right now?
Yep.
Yep.
We are. And I don't know if we need, if we need a motion to approve them for first reading now, or do you want to go through the others as well?
We can do them all in one batch.
Okay, let's do that then. So let me walk you through the others, and if that's all right.
Sure.
We have 4 other policies revisions in front of us. The school committee staff communications one. A lot of these are just, again, aligning what's in our policies with what's happening in the bigger picture. So this one's, and forgive me, I have to go through all my things here. The main change here is a line, which you may have read in the packet, which says that this policy is about how staff can appeal or staff communicate with the school committee. It's that there's certain things that we can't address. Matters which are not subject to appeals to the school committee include those areas where the law, another school committee policy, or civil rights grievance procedure has specifically assigned authority to principals. So it's just making this policy aligned with the other policy procedures we have in areas of civil rights. So there's certain things that can't grieve to us because there are other established policies in place. Is that, Dr. Quinn, I want to make sure I'm explaining this clearly. So that's that one. The next one is.
Can I just jump on that real quick? So I had the good fortune of making visits to the high school and middle school. That was like this spring. And I unfortunately had to cancel my visits to Schcmte and Russell Street. And Cheryl reminded me that, the invitation was open. And I said, well, I think that we should probably get in the habit of, as a school committee, making the rounds. So the visits to the schools are in that. And I just wanted to let the committee know that it was something that I had been thinking about. And when we reconvene in the fall, I think to get in to walk the halls and see the excitement and staff and get the vibe, I enjoyed it, and I would encourage everyone to participate in the fall. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's a policy we'll want to draw our attention to. It's not a revision of the policy. That language would remain the same. And I think we probably at a retreat need a lot of kind of making ourselves aware of what's appropriate and what's the process for dropping through. So this one talks about if you visit a school, it's not an inspection, it's just informal. It's just it's the way in which I think all of us would experience those not inspections of visits, but I want to just make sure that's clear. So that's the main change for this policy. Can I move on to the next one? You ready? The next one is about staff complaints and grievances. And again, the change is basically there's 2 lines in part 2. It's just the same thing. They can appeal a ruling superintendent committee except for in areas where another school committee policy or civil rights grievance procedure is already in place. So there's certain things that can be grieved to us as a school committee, but if it involves civil rights or there's established procedure in place, it's really not our jurisdiction to intervene, according to this policy, which the language, I think Dr. Clinch can remind me, was recommended by the staff attorney we worked with. Right? Okay. So I think that's pretty straightforward. So that even I can explain it. The one, let's go to the community involvement decision-making and then look at bullying prevention. So this is policy KCB. Slightly out of order. Again, I like that the way this reminds what this policy begins. It says the school committee endorses the concept of community participation in the affairs of schools is essential, right? If we're going to work, this will work. We believe that this communication is essential. It's something we talked about Jason earlier. I like that's a clear statement. And then the second paragraph, the one that's suggested change, reads, all citizens will be encouraged to express ideas, concerns, and or questions about the schools to school administration, to any appointed advisory bodies, and to committee for district policy. Full stop. The change is complaints regarding civil rights will be handled in accordance with the applicable school committee policies and specific civil rights procedures. So if it's about civil rights or discrimination, it's just saying, hey, we can hear certain things, but other things we really have to be careful we're following the law, and it's just clarifying that. Does that make sense?
It does. That language is consistent across all of the policies. So it's like the catchphrase for the year, I guess.
It is. And so the last one is the bullying prevention policy, which is it's just a much larger policy. If some of the changes are changing language, no student shall be subjected to, this now would read, bullying, cyberbullying, or retaliation. It defines bullying. It goes through several things here. Again, trying to see, I dropped my papers and they're not numbered. So it goes through, bullying is prohibited in all these places. Sometimes the changes are just adding and parents. It's like almost grammatical. Another change is at the bottom of page 2. It reads, any student who knowingly makes a false accusation of bullying, replacing shall be subject to disciplinary action. It's maybe, which I think gets back to this adding a little discretion in the way that we've discussed before. And then it talks about investigation procedures, which it's just much more detailed. I don't know if I'm comfortable kind of summarizing what all these different changes are. Some of them in terms of timeline, and some are about just the steps so the parents and the public know what was to be expected. And this gets kind of Erica's comments and experiences earlier. And so I don't feel comfortable kind of summarizing this and saying, hey, we should just move with this without more committee involvement in the conversation.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is at hour 2:45 on the last day when we didn't really tell the community this is going to be a focus. Right. If it's even appropriate to have the first reading of this policy, or if we want to just I'm just spitballing here. No. Maybe let's make this let's not rush this conversation.
Agreed.
And so what I might suggest, if it pleases the committee, is I feel comfortable suggesting we take action on the other policies, but this one I think we should talk about and not rush. And I'd almost, even though we'd always have the chance to do a second reading, doing the first reading and passing it would imply in some level that we were ready to move forward on this. And and I we talked about with the school start kind of stuff. I don't want to rush important things, and there's a few things more important than make sure we have a right bullying policy right now.
Agreed.
Yep. Agreed.
And when we revisit this, I'd almost like to see this not take place at the very end of the meeting. It might be a topic that we consider as the main event.
Well, I know that's the agenda. So I'll send them an email.
In that way, we can have our discussion. We can report back what we've heard from the community. We can talk about our edits, and it doesn't have to be just at the end.
And I think that in line with the language I cited earlier about how we believe open communication and community participation is really important, maybe this is one where we have a broader conversation about bullying before we get to the actual policy part. But for now, at least, at the end of this meeting, I feel comfortable making a motion that we approve at the first reading all the policies except for the bullying prevention.
I would be good with that. These are first readings anyways, so they wouldn't actually go into effect until we would confirm a second reading.
Right. Yeah.
So I just wanted to air that, by not taking action, it's not like we're slowing the process down. Really, nothing's going to happen until the second.
No, it means it's going to be a 2 week. If we move forward, there will be a 2 week delay on making these changes. Okay. But Dr. Coach, I'm kind of dropping this on you. Does this make sense to you as a way to move forward with this policy?
It does. Yeah. I mean, we initiated our lawyer looking at this. Just so you know, it was self-initiated. It wasn't the bullying policy and prevention. Wasn't related to Title IX, but it's something we wanted reviewed at the same time.
I just think it's bad form. Third hour of a meeting at the last meeting.
I agree.
So let's I think we communicate to the public that we take this really seriously by making it one of the first agenda items next year, and not continuation, but a hidden reset on it. I think there.
Okay.
So
do that then.
So if that's the sense of the committee, is it appropriate for me as the policy person to make the motion?
Please do.
I move. I moved on the papers that we accept for first reading. I believe is the way we say it. The new revised policy AC, the revised policy BHC, the revised policy BK, and the revised policy KCB.
Motion made, Mr. Austin.
Seconded.
Seconded, Ms. Gold. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Mark that as unanimous.
And I would also move that we, at the first reading, we eliminate the current policy ACA and the current policy ACAB and the current policy ACE, because the policy AC, if we approve the new policy AC, because the new policy AC will supersede those anyway.
Okay. Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Mark that as unanimous. Okay. Thank you very much. There's a lot of work there by the policy subcommittee.
Thanks, Dorothy.
Dorothy, thank you very much. At the very end of the year, we're 10 to 10. Is there anything which any of the committee members wish to share or provide any updates? Just want to give you a chance. I understand. All right, at this point in time, I'd like to accept the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made. Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good one. Thanks, Stacy.
Good night.
Good night.